I'm just taping.
Okay.
Do you want it live?
They didn't say anything, and you're on the state pre-meetings, and we're sure later, so we'll continue that practice on our school.
That's the end of my life downstairs.
I'll accept introduce y'all and turn it off.
I'm sorry, we're going first, right?
We'll be up there together, but we'll be in this little.
But if they don't,
We have housing too.
then I would have
Yeah.
Well,
You are so sweet. I brought my Rachel, how are you? Good. I like your hair.
Who are you? How are you doing?
Thank you for coming down.
Thank you.
We've all
your daughter, by the way? I will, I'll take her copy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Be back then and thank
Okay.
I'll take it. You just let me know, I'm back here.
I will.
Take care.
You can never settle back on especially.
There was more to consider than some of the very But you can't exercise your right as a citizen. In terms of
That's what or make it like
I'm on your How are you?
What year's your number?
That's 2019.
Dog dropped a bone on top of it. A big heavy wood bone, and it put a nice full jump on it the other day.
Just turn the key.
They say the last one is here to work
The driver wears out the wood.
All right, let's get this meeting started. Thanks everyone for being here for our pre-meeting. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Are there any questions by any commissioners about the agenda? All right, well, let's get started. The first item on our agenda is an update on the broadband provider issue, and Tim Love is going to take the lead on this.
Good deal. Good afternoon, everyone. You're not going to hear much from me today, but I will start this update by introducing you to a few folks who have been instrumental in the broadband initiative, and they're sitting here with me on the front row. So we've got Land of Sky, which includes Sarah Nichols, who you've met before on this topic, as well as Erica Anderson. But a new face to you today is Keith Conover, who's sitting beside Sarah. Keith works for the North Carolina Department of Information Technology, has gotten a lot better than he used to be when he was working for Verizon, but now works here and is supporting us trying to improve broadband in rural western North Carolina. So with that said, those are the introductions. I'm going to turn it over to Sarah and Keith, who are going to walk you through the presentation.
Good afternoon, and thank you for your continued interest in this project. It's definitely something that Keith and I are very passionate about doing and seeing move forward in your community. And today is special because we get to talk about how we move from the planning phase into some action items. As a review, we've gone through, the West Engine effort is in its phase 2 operation. As part of this, we participated in the community survey, which had about 2,600 responses countywide, and we've done a variety of asset mapping and accumulation, including community assets, vertical assets, etc. This checklist here brings us to where we're at now, which is the provider meeting, where we bring all of that data that we've put together and put that in front of our provider friends.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today. Just in terms, and Tim was so nice to mention my Verizon past. I worked for AT&T, Verizon, and Bell Atlantic for 27 years before moving here to Asheville 9 years ago. So I'm a citizen of Buncombe County, and I'm very passionate about this. I've been doing the state's work for 7 years, and have been responsible for bringing broadband new and improved to thousands of people. It is a market-driven, non-regulated entity, so that becomes difficult at times. This would be the 14th county that we've had a provider meeting in. So I've done 13 of these already, and I say that so that you know that the providers are pretty prepared on what to expect out of the meeting, and that we're not just trying something new in Buncombe County that we've never done before. Every meeting that we've had has resulted in deployments, and I'm quite proud of that. So having said that, the provider meeting really does two things. It allows for a check mark on neutrality, which says that we invite all the providers, incumbent as well as potential competitors, to the meeting. That's my job, is to do those invites and keep track of that. That is, so if there's ever a provider that comes and says we weren't invited, you can point them directly to me. Knocking on wood, I've got 7 years with ever having that kind of a request, so I promise you that that will be my commitment to you. So what that does is that allows you to say everybody's been invited to the meeting, so now we can move forward and work with folks that really are interested in making changes in Buncombe County. The second item that's of importance is, as Sarah mentioned, sharing the demand information. And I will tell you, 2,600 responses is the largest of any county that I've done in the past. I'm not surprised by that, because Buncombe County represents a market that is very desirable. And that is something that we should definitely not forget about through these sessions with these providers. So those are the two benefits of having the provider meeting. What will happen at the provider meetings, and you can flip us to the next slide if you would like. My role is to facilitate that meeting. Typically someone from the county will introduce themselves, thank everyone for attending, thank everyone for whatever deployment that they've done already, because again, it's not a regulated business. We appreciate anything they've done to date. What our goal is to have them to do more in the future. Once that happens, I typically am introduced and I take it from there. And again, these providers have been through this before. What we do is we present them with information that is on a thumb drive that they will take with them from that meeting. And Sarah and I are in the process now of preparing that. What that includes, it includes the demand information, the addresses of the 2,600 folks that have responded. It includes a map with those addresses. It includes your vertical assets where myself, Tim, Sarah, Vance, we all went out and looked at the towers and what would be available from a wireless perspective. And then a map also that includes those all together, which shows the demand versus the assets available, which is very valuable. Many of these providers do not have folks that do this kind of research for them. That's why we're here. We're here to try and show them that there is opportunities, especially in the rural areas, where young people might be getting laptops at school, they go home, they don't have a connection, some telemedicine needs that might be out there as well. But what this allows them to do is to look at that. And then what I usually do at the end of that session, and typically these meetings, by the way, are not very long because we've been through them several times, right? Typically they last about a half an hour. Because the real magic will happen once they take that information back to their related businesses and lay their network elements over that. But I do talk about funding. And when we talk about funding, we talk about USDA, Reconnect funds, which are federal funds that are available for broadband, and we have had some awards recently in Western North Carolina. It's been almost a decade since we've had them, but this past year we had them in Cherokee County for Blue Ridge Mountain EMC, and we've had them in neighboring Madison County for French Broad as well. So those were multi-million-dollar awards that happen, and in those cases the providers have to be the applicants. So we in our civic duty are called upon to be kind of like cheerleaders, to say if you need any information, if you need demographic information, if you need the addresses, the vertical assets that might help you go after those funds because it's voluntary, we would be glad to help you with that. And that's what we typically do in our organization, is work with folks that need that kind of help. And I gotta give accolades to Sarah and Erica, because the Land of Sky COG rarely goes after funds for broadband and does not achieve their goal. So I get the same thing with the Southwest Commission Council of Governments. I cover, just so you know, just west of Charlotte all the way to Murphy. So that kind of covers. I think I'm run out of time, right? But that kind of covers what the provider meeting is. It's nothing new, but it is definitely it's a very important milestone to move from planning to deployment, which we have seen in many cases. I'll just be quick and tell you that I just had a deal last year with Western Carolina University where they own their electric infrastructure, and we're going to sell it to Duke. If you want to Google that up, take a look. But at the end of the day, after asking them to hold off on that to try and solve the broadband needs, we ended up with 4,200 people with newer, better broadband at no cost to the taxpayer. So much like the internet is a patchwork of smaller networks, the solutions in rural areas are a patchwork of very different solutions, and it's been my pleasure to help us find those.
So as we prepare for the provider meeting, as well as what else we might have going on kind of on the planning side, we've been looking at the data that we collected from the community survey and identified some next steps in the community profiles, some of which will be reviewing the telecommunication ordinance over the next few months and some priority projects, as well as Keith will work with the providers and what they do after. What we saw that was interesting, and we anticipated this on the front end, was that Buncombe County kind of has two situations. They have some very rural areas with a certain problem, and they have some urban areas with a different problem. And you can see the purple circles on the outside represent the rural communities in clusters where we have some identified either connectivity or access issues. But we also have a cluster that right there in the center of the county kind of saying the same thing. And so I dug a little deeper with the data. I queried it by a zip code in each of those areas. And not surprisingly, but I wanted to point it out that what we have is in the rural areas a much lower density, much lower population density with a much higher level of either insufficiency or access exponentially. And so when you follow it up with the question as to why we're seeing these things show up in the data, you can see that we've got in Sandy Mush about 55% of the population saying that they don't have an option for service at all. That's why they don't have connectivity in their home. Versus in the city of Asheville, 100%, and people could check more than one box, that's why there's more than 100% totals, but 100% people say that it's just too expensive. What that boils down to is either their cost of living is too high, or in the urban areas they have more opportunities for some free Wi-Fi that makes it not need to be a priority to have in their home. What we did in the ARC grant this cycle is put in these 3 purple circles, went into an ARC grant that would put an additional Wi-Fi spot in these rural areas so that they have some of the same opportunities that the urban areas to get some public access. It's not a solution, it's kind of a Band-Aid, but it gives the rural areas a little bit of an opportunity. So what we'll be doing next, hopefully with your support, is moving forward with the provider meeting and some of these other opportunities that we've identified in our community profile to, I don't even know, to move this forward. Do we have any questions?
When you do a Wi-Fi spot in the rural areas, how do you decide where it goes?
We, because ARC is through public funding, we'll do that in a public area. So the process, should we be funded for that, is we put 3 community centers. It would be Lester Community Center, Ox Creek, and Broad River are those 3 community centers. Each of them have towers nearby, so what we would do is try to utilize the tower or someone else who wants to be a provider in that area, bid out the project to them, they'll respond to it. We'll have a competitive process that accounts for neutrality, and the grant also would put a public computer in there that the community centers have agreed to keep accessible to the in general hours.
Okay, thanks.
Any final questions? Good deal. Well, we appreciate y'all's time. Just wanted to update the board as well as the public on kind of next steps. In the next month, there will be a provider meeting that will be announced and hosted here. But if you have any questions, feel free to let us know.
Thank you so much for the update. This is a very important issue to many of our constituents, so we really appreciate the work that is going into this and being kept in the loop about those efforts. And please let us know if there's anything we can do to continue to be supportive. All right. Nate Pennington and Jillian Phillips, we're going to talk about some text amendments coming up.
Good afternoon. I am going to talk about 2 proposed text amendments to the subdivision ordinance that will come before the board at your October 15th meeting. 2 pretty simple text amendments. One is changes to when a traffic impact study is required for a subdivision. And the second one is a clarification to the special subdivision requirements, and then a slight revision to the family subdivision requirements.
So, go ahead, I'm sorry. Fine.
So just a little history about the traffic impact study requirements. In 2017, we added a requirement for traffic impact studies for subdivisions of 300 lots or more. A similar requirement was added to the zoning ordinance, but at a lower density threshold than the subdivision ordinance. Then in 2018, you passed a revision to the zoning ordinance to require a traffic impact study for 75 units or more for a planned unit development. So the proposed amendment to the subdivision ordinance would change the requirement to change the requirement for a traffic impact study to 75 lots or more to match it with the zoning ordinance, so we have consistency throughout our ordinances. And just to let you know, it's been reviewed by the Department of Transportation, and we actually sent it to the City of Asheville because we do have some roads that serve property within the county that would be regulated by the county subdivision ordinance, but are served by city roads. And that has to do with the ETJ being dissolved. It created this sort of strange situation that we have there. The amendment to the traffic impact study has been reviewed and discussed, and a public hearing has been held by the planning board, and they recommended approval to the board. So again, just more specifics on the requirements.
What was the vote on
It was unanimous.
the, okay.
It would go from 300 lots to 75 lots, and we are adding a requirement that if the traffic impact study indicates that the level of service would be reduced to D or lower, that your driveway permit be submitted to NCDOT or City of Asheville. Your driveway permit be approved by NCDOT or City of Asheville prior to submitting for preliminary approval. Now, most subdivision developers, they submit for preliminary approval. Once they get that preliminary approval from the planning board, they then go get their DOT driveway permit approval from the City of Asheville. So just a graph.
Back up. Slow down on that and tell me that again, on the driveway permit.
So currently,
What's happening now and what is being proposed?
So currently, most developers do not submit for their DOT driveway permit, or if it's in the City of Asheville, or approval from City of Asheville, until after they've received preliminary approval from the planning board.
Why do they do it that way now?
I think just trying to get the process started, trying to get their approvals in place before they submit additional information to DOT or the City of Asheville. And so what this would do is if you have a subdivision that's going to reduce level of service on a road, it would require you get that DOT driveway permit or City of Asheville approval prior to submitting to the planning board for preliminary approval. That way, if there are any recommendations regarding, the DOT has any recommendations regarding turning lanes or decel lanes, those can be discussed with DOT prior to going to the Buncombe County Planning Board. And this is just a graphic that sort of shows you what level of service the flow of traffic looks like. And as you can see, A, B, and C are pretty stable, but once you get to D, that's where traffic is affected, flow is affected by volume. And that's why we decided to start that requirement at level D or lower.
I did just also want to point out too that, with the ETJ now gone, that's 2 ETJs out of 3 in the state, 2 are in Buncombe County. It made it really difficult to sort of plan from a transportation perspective when we have any number of scenarios where you have city roads that then go out to the county. One example, that's Old Haywood Road. Okay, so that's out in Candler, it's actually maintained by the city of Asheville. So we're trying to maintain a way to coordinate with municipalities in a way that's going to not create a situation that's going to create a transportation issue that we haven't thought clearly through. We've got some fairly significant projects coming in, some fairly significant projects that have already come through. After all, we're still in development boom. And we've also done something that it's a little bit of out of the box, but we think it'll help as we continue to take projects to our Board of Adjustment. We want to set them up for success. So what we've done and what the DOT's agreed to is they're now attending our technical review committee meetings. What the technical review committee meeting is it's all your subject matter experts, all your people involved with development review, whether it be erosion control, stormwater, transportation, permits and inspections. They all sit at a table and they look at a project and they identify any concerns that may take place. And what that does is it allows us to forward on to the Board of Adjustment. Because they review projects through the conditional use permit process, it sets them up to better look at a project and say, hey, I kind of want to approve this, but I'd like to feel better about any sort of conditions that we might want to consider as part of our approval. After all, it's a conditional use permit process. So what that does is it allows us to go ahead and have that conversation with the NCDOT, with the city of Asheville, with an affected municipality, so that we can plan out what sort of mitigating conditions need to be looked at. And this is just one way to sort of help close that loop. By the way, when you all did consider the zoning ordinance change of 75 units, that was approved unanimously by the commissioners at that time. Just wanted to add that, because it does play, while level of service D is an extreme example and seen in more urban areas, it does sometimes happen. And that way we are able to work with the DOT so that they can tell us ahead of the curve and ahead of the game what they're going to require, whether that be a decel lane, a turn lane, a light. We know right from the get-go what we might need to plan for.
Yeah, I just want to, make sure we're not painting the entire county with an ETJ brush. We keep bringing up the ETJ and all the issues we run into that, because when you get out beyond what used to be the ETJ, it's different when you're doing the subdivision. I just want to make sure that the level of service, being D, that should.
It's going to be your more urban.
That might calm my concerns on some of it.
So it's basically a twofold. One is to bring it into consistency with the zoning ordinance, but secondly, in those extreme circumstances, and we've got a couple of projects that are going to be coming forward that are in sort of like, the ETJ, there's no clear line. In some areas it looks like, well, in a sense, it's almost a blob in some areas as to how it sort of snakes up in the city and comes back out. So we're just trying to find a way to, a moderate approach to traffic.
Any further questions about the traffic impact study requirement? Yes. So the second change is to our special and family subdivisions. Special subdivisions are 3 lots or less. They require fire marshal's approval for private access, so that's a private road or a private shared driveway. But beyond that, there aren't many additional requirements. And then family subdivisions, we allow up to a 5-lot subdivision right now for the specific purpose of transferring property to a relative. So for special subdivision, we're clarifying a requirement of the special subdivision requirements that say that if you subdivide, if you have a 3-lot subdivision, if you subdivide additionally, so say you take one of those 3 lots and subdivide it into another 3 lots, within a 3-year period, then that subdivision is considered a minor subdivision. And we have that in there is because what we were having developers do is create a special subdivision, creating 3 separate LLCs or transferring it into 3 separate people's names. and then additionally doing 3 additional special subdivisions. So you had a 9-lot subdivision that was never reviewed for road infrastructure or for through the stormwater and erosion process. So again, we have that requirement of the 3-year time period for special subdivisions, and we are just clarifying because we've had lots of questions from surveyors. But if you have a 2-lot subdivision and you want to come in within that 3-year period and subdivide out an additional lot, you do not have to meet those requirements for a minor subdivision. I always say you get 3 lots for free. Once you hit 4, you have to start constructing some infrastructure. Any questions about that?
It's crystal clear.
So family subdivisions, what we are having occurring as the language is written now is, again, developers were coming in doing a 5-lot special family subdivision, and on top of that, doing a 3-lot special subdivision. So you had an 8-lot subdivision that was then being developed without going through the subdivision review process. So that includes our infrastructure. If they go through the minor subdivision process, it helps our stormwater administrator and erosion control administrator make sure they're meeting those ordinances. Minor subdivisions are subject to our hillside development requirements. So what was happening was developers were using it as a way around the requirements of the subdivision ordinance as far as infrastructure and hillside development and so on. So what we're proposing, we really would like to keep it in place for the people who are using it for the purpose of transferring property to family members. But what we're proposing is we limit it to 5 lots, and 3 out of those 5 lots may be for sale. So you could have 5 lots that were completely going to family members, or you could have 3 lots that were going to family members and 2 for sale, or 1 for sale, whatever combination. But the specific standard is you can't have more than 5 lots. Any questions about that one? And those are the 2 proposed subdivision ordinance requirements.
All right, anything else, Nate? You guys good? All right. Next up is the recommendations. We actually just came from that meeting, and we did not make the recommendations yet. We're going to require one more meeting to think some of those issues through. So I think our update is that there's no update yet.
So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start the slideshow. What I'm going to do is sort of do an abbreviated version, and we're going to update you because there was some questions in previous meetings regarding FY 2019 in terms of our emergency repair. And in front of you, you should now have a manila folder that you can take with you and read through a summary of those items. And then I'm just going to go over a quick slide that shows you where you can find those online. And so this will be fairly quick because, like Chair Newman said, we did just come from an Affordable Housing Committee. And I'll just briefly update you on that process. So again, FY 2019, we call this the funding wheel that we have. It's the categories that we look at in terms of the Buncombe County Affordable Housing Services Program. We try to do a little bit of everything. We have emergency repair, we offer low-interest construction loans. There's also components for tenant-based rental assistance, employee housing, a permanent fee rebate program, and a down payment assistance program. And again, this just sort of gives you the highlights that's included in your manila folder, and I'll show the public here in just a second where they can find this online. But just in summary here, this gives you a brief synopsis of what we touched on in the 2019 program. $240,000 allocation to Asheville Area Habitat for Humanity. This project is currently under construction. They had to do a lot of heavy infrastructure on the project. I actually spoke to Andy earlier. I was asking him about concrete curbs, which is a fascinating subject. He told me they're well under construction with stand-up curb. Eventually, in the phase 1, it'll support 24 units for sale home ownership. The second one just indicates how things can change in the real world. We have money that's returned to the program On this one in particular, this was a victim of Amboy Road, I-26 and 240 realignment, and the contractor and developer basically told us that he will not be able to move forward with that particular project as it stands. We have two providers of emergency repair in the county. That's Mountain Housing Opportunities and Habitat for Humanity. This just sort of indicates how they have provided emergency repair and the number of units and what they will do coming up. And that's just based on the timeline. They hope to have all these completed within 1 year. Clarification on the last one, we do have a small amount that's allocated to Employee Housing Assistance Program. There was a 19 request or two for this, but what happens is it's a small amount. It's a multi-year fund. It's moved forward if we don't use it. I think the idea there is that we don't always ask for new money to recharge if we have funds available. So that's the reason that's indicated as such. This is an interesting graphic that our department creates. It's a scatter map. Shows you across the county of where we're making an impact in terms of emergency repair. As you can see from the map, it's all over the place. This is also where you will find documents available that you can go to our website and click on everything that you have included in your Manila folder. And it includes the following reports in detail. Now, the interesting part and what I have to update you on. We just came from the Affordable Housing Committee. Let's keep in mind this is a new committee for this year. We're still trying to find our way. We had a very robust conversation. We're reviewing applications. This year, I can tell you in reports so far, we've received 8, 6 of which were deemed complete. And then what we're trying to decide is, well, every year there's an amount of money that's requested, but only a certain amount of money that's allotted. So we're trying to find the best way to complete that funding wheel and make an impact in sort of all these categories and components. What the committee landed upon is originally we had proposed to come to you guys to the full commission on October 15th. The committee would like a little bit more time to study the applications. We're going to meet sometime the first week in November and then likely come to the commission for a full vote either the first meeting or the second meeting in November. And this just sort of indicates what our budgeted budget is. Program income is money that comes back into the program with loans and interest, and then the returned funds is basically what would happen if a project doesn't move forward or some other kind of information comes to light. All that equates to $1,080,707, and we've already received an amount of money that is in excess of that amount. And again, just to rehash, we'll come back to you at either the first or the second meeting in November for a vote on those specific applications. And that concludes my presentation on update to the commissioners.
Great. Thank you, Nate. To be continued. All right, next up we have the County IBC Transportation Agreement.
Good afternoon, Rachel Nygaard, Strategic Partnerships Director, and here with Chief Deputy Everhart from the Sheriff's Office. We are here to talk with you about IVC, which is Involuntary Commitment Transportation Agreement for Buncombe County. The reason that we're before you is that there is a new piece of legislation which has been passed by the General Assembly for North Carolina pertaining to laws surrounding IVC, the involuntary commitment, and the delivery of behavioral health services. So one of the reasons that I'm introducing the topic is that our behavioral health partnerships for Buncombe County are nested within the Strategic Partnerships Department. But of course, the law enforcement organizations have a critical role in a lot of assets of the crisis response, including transportation. And these laws pertain to a number of aspects, including transportation. So the requirement essentially says that these local entities, the care entities, including behavioral health as well as hospital and the law enforcement organizations, will collaborate in developing a transportation agreement which will codify or put into writing and formalize the plans as to how a person will move through the various steps as they're physically taken into custody at the time of issuing an order for involuntary evaluation and commitment. The thing that kicked it all off is that the original due date in this legislation, which was passed about a year ago, late 2018, there was an original ask for counties to submit their transportation agreements to the state by January of 2019. As you can see, our planning really kicked off in June, about 6 months later. That was in line with where most of the counties across the state were. And the primary reason for that is the transportation plan is falling under this larger umbrella of a crisis services response plan via health, the local management entity, LME, MCO, the Managed Care Organization for Behavioral Health, Substance Abuse Services, and Developmental Disabilities. VIA is our main coordinating organization, so they have been convening partners around IVC crisis planning, which pertains to services and treatment, in addition to, so that the evaluations and treatment within that services umbrella, in addition to the transportation pieces, which the Sheriff's Office, which Chief Deputy will speak with us about in a minute. So throughout the summer and as we approached August, we've been working on that larger crisis services plan. And as a subset of that, working on a MOA, so a memorandum of understanding or agreement between the different entities that you'll see in a minute related to how people are transported from one phase or one location to another throughout the involuntary commitment process. And I'll let Eberhard cover some of the specifics of the plan, and I'll come back and talk about next steps.
Good afternoon, Don Eberhard, Buncombe County Sheriff's Office. Thank you for the opportunity to present. A portion of the transportation agreement is a memorandum between the Buncombe County Sheriff's Office and all of the other local law enforcement agencies within the county. Previously, state regulations kind of had the oversight on how consumers that had IVC papers issued against them would be identified, located, taken into custody, and transported to an evaluation site. Under the new policy draft, that has been pushed down to a local county area. Buncombe County Sheriff's Office or any sheriff's office in the state, in essence, serves as the lead. So we've met with all of the local law enforcement agencies in the county. We've produced a draft for them. They are giving some feedback. Spoke with the chief of Montreat PD this morning, and we're going to try and have a quick meeting for one final revision on that. And again, this includes the needs for transportation after the magistrate issues the involuntary commitment, after the initial evaluation, and whether or not further treatment is needed. Buncombe County Sheriff's Office is responsible for transporting consumers that need mental health, advanced mental health treatment throughout the state. From here to Raleigh, from here to Greensboro, that falls on the local sheriff's office. The other local agencies that are participating in this, AB Tech Campus Police, Asheville PD, Biltmore Forest Police Department, Black Mountain Police Department, Montreat Police Department, North Carolina Arboretum, Weaverville Police Department, Woodfin Police Department, and UNCA Campus Police. And again, the overall transport plan is not going to deviate from what state statute had previously had us operating under.
So fairly straightforward, where it had previously been optional for counties to have a written agreement in place, it's now required. So we're going through the steps of making sure that that agreement fully captures all of the current practices and anything anticipated. we will be bringing that agreement forward for your regular agenda on October 15th. That means the agreement is being, like he mentioned, final reviews this week, and it gets published to your packet and posted online by the 9th, a week in advance of your regular meeting. Provided that gets the approval, we authorize that to be signed. And I mentioned Via Health working with local counties. They've got 22 different counties throughout the region that they're coordinating with on behalf of the state as we put these final plans in place. 10 out of those 22 have completed it, and the others are mostly on the Board of Commission agenda, so you're in good company with other counties here in the western part of the state for the months of October and November to finalize those. And once completed, we'll submit to all of the places required by the law, which are listed on the screen in front of you, or were a second ago. Do you have any questions?
Doesn't look like it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you both very much for the presentation and the information. All right, next item, the AV Tech Capital Projects recommendation, and thank you for kicking us off on that.
Yeah, I'm going to start off with some background on the MOU that was originated, and then Matt's going to follow up with project information, and then Dirk is here from AV Tech in case you all have any specific questions about the projects or anything like that. So let's start the presentation. All right, so as you all recall, at the March 9th, 2019 Board of Commissioner meetings, you approved an MOU with AV Tech. And the basis of the MOU was to make sure that we were all in agreement on how we would use the Article 46 monies. We're not going to transfer more than $5 million to cover operating. We're going to start with the $25 million that we had in deferred maintenance, and we're going to build on that every year. And so at the end of 8 years, we'll have a total of $30 million that we will have spent on all the projects that they have. We're also going to make sure that those funds never fall below the $2 million that we're going to set as the fund balance level. Now, one of the biggest things that came out of this is the Joint Capital Advisory Committee. So per the MOU, it's going to function similar to the School Capital Commission, where we have 2 appointees from the board here, which is Commissioner Beach-Barrera and then Commissioner Whiteside. And then we have 2 from AV Tech. We have Trustee Roger Metcalf and Matt Kern. And then we have 1 at large, which was appointed at the first meeting, I believe, when they set the bylaws. Is that correct? Or was it the second meeting? It was the first meeting. And he's the at-large member. So they've had 2 meetings so far. And then at this last meeting, they talked about projects and that sort of thing. And then Matt's going to give you kind of some detail on the projects, unless you have any questions about the MOU, which I doubt you do.
Afternoon, Commissioners. Good to see you. We have met twice. At the initial meeting on August 21st, Dirk and his team brought $2.4 million worth of projects to the table. The biggest one being an Inca campus bundle of projects, with the biggest of that being new roofs at the TCC Center. Another was a master plan for $125,000. It's good to note that AV Tech has done a master plan study before. However, that was at the Victoria campus only. So this would be for the Inca campus. And then some first-year programmatic capital investments slated at $75,000. If you have any questions on any of these projects, Dirk's probably your best bet. I'm sorry. And also $40,000 in emergency projects, which at this point sounds like contingency. And this also sounds like it's going to be a minimum of $40,000. So perhaps could exceed $40,000, but right now we've slated in $40,000. And $500,000 in energy conservation measures, which at this point is solely LED replacement, which is a quick payback. A study was done by the Waste Reduction Partners, and they said that we could save, or AV Tech could save $85,000-ish by replacing their LED bulbs. Any questions on these projects?
You might explain where the TCC building is actually on the campus?
Sure.
Just so people would know.
Unfortunately, I don't have a map, but our Inca campus is approximately 41 acres at the corner of Sand Hill Road and Smoky Parkway. And the core building that you see from Smoky Mountain Parkway is the large building there, 160,000 square feet, and it's the one you see from the road. The taller tower, which we call the old Haynes Tower, is in the back of the property, and you don't see it as much on the road. Is that your answer to your question, sir?
Yeah. Yeah, I know where it's at, just want to make sure everybody was familiar.
Any other questions?
I have one question. Maybe a couple. So the emergency projects, it says the bullet points say contingency, and so anyway, could you just maybe share a few more words about what's in this bucket?
Well, when we submitted our budget application this year, we'd asked for somewhere in the neighborhood of $700,000 or $800,000 more, and you under awarded us, which meant that we had to make some cuts. But then you did supplement and come back, and we identified some cuts as well. And part of the cuts were what we would call contingency for unexpected replacements, repair and replacements. So the case in point that I cite is back in early August, when it was 90 degrees every day, we had 4 air conditioning units, some of which are scheduled to be replaced at some point under the capital repair and replacement plan, that were not operational. So they were emergency repairs that were not budgeted at this point. And so my anticipation is that in the spirit of the MOU, we would use those funds to underwrite those expenses as we experience them.
So it's for basically if equipment has a failure, you would have funding there to replace it. It's not for replacing equipment that's already.
No.
But it's just sort of in anticipation of, hey, things break, we need to be able to fix things when they break, and we'd like to have a little bit of funding earmarked for those types of relatively small projects.
That's correct.
One other question, and this comes to mind just because we funded a similar project with the city and county schools. So on the LED project, it sounds great. Duke was, I know when we did the city and county school project, there was a pretty nice rebate that the project qualified for as well. Is that still out there?
I'm not sure if the rebate is out there in the same form that it was at that time. Part of the problem for the college is that we were not participating in the rate schedule that would anticipate the fact that we could get those rebates. So most all of our buildings on campus are paying at the lower rate because we don't.
Right, you have to participate in that Duke Energy Management Program in order to qualify for their incentives, right?
That's correct.
And AB Tech doesn't do that.
That's right.
Okay, understood. Thanks. I just thought I would ask since I know that was part of the mix on the other project we did. Those are my only questions for now. Other questions? So the just in terms of the process, so the capital committee's already reviewed this and supports the recommendations, and then the AB Tech Board of Trustees will take it up next week. And then so we're being sort of briefed on this, but we're not voting, and so then we'll finally vote on the 15th.
Once the trustee.
Okay, on our October 15th meeting. Okay, great. I guess my only other question, and this probably goes back to Dirk. So part of the funding will be for this sort of planning process for the Inca campus. Is that right?
Correct.
And is that about looking at the physical structures, the buildings on the campus for, what are the future needs? I mean, the roof is being part of this project. Sort of the maintenance plans for the existing building, or is it also about programming? Is it about programming and kind of taking care of the physical structures, or both? Or could you just say a few more words about that?
Right, it's all of that. For way too long, we've ignored the Inca campus. We received it as a gift in 2000, and it's still sitting there pretty much unchanged, other than some modifications that were made early on. And so we have a lot of deferred maintenance that needs to be addressed out there. So we would like to have a facilities assessment like the one that you conducted on our behalf this past couple of years to identify exactly in the one building that we intend to keep, and that is the TCC building, we would ultimately assume that we would sell off perhaps the rest of that facility in the Haynes building. So we're really only focused about the TCC building. It's 160 square feet of facility, and we're only utilizing about 90,000 square feet of that. So part of our desire is we try to continue to expand our services to our residents, would be to expand in some of those unoccupied areas. In fact, if we could get to a core at full-time equivalent enrollment of more than 300 students out there, as we have at Woodfin, we would receive a supplemental grant from the state to help operate the overhead costs related to operating that facility. So our goal would be to actually increase, and this would help offset the demand for more space at the Victoria campus as well. So there's two components. There's facility assessment, and then there's a programmatic assessment and plan, master plan, that would include our stakeholders and those that would have an interest, either in terms of current tenants, prospective tenants, people in the community, as to how we would better utilize those facilities moving forward.
Great answer. Great. Any other questions? All right. Thank you all for the updates. Anything else we need to know in this item before we move on?
There should be a cash flow in the back of the presentation that was presented to AB Tech, just so you can see the funding.
Okay. Next up, Rachel is back to tell us about the MacArthur Foundation Safety and Justice Grant. Related items.
Hello again. I'm here to introduce another item that will be on your regular agenda for October 15th. So this is a preview of a request for additional positions, and they're related to the Safety and Justice Challenge Grant, which the board has accepted and heard various updates on in the past. As a reminder, this grant is focused on jail population reduction. This is a support that comes from the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, so private foundation money that comes directly to Buncombe County government for system work within criminal justice to address the drivers of jail population. And the total grant award was $1.75 million over a 2-year period. This work is being driven by the Justice Resource Advisory Council, which is the planning body for our criminal justice collaboration efforts. And that council identified 7 strategies to work on within the grant, which are listed here, with 4 primary strategies and 3 underlying strategies or foundational strategies. The positions that we're going to talk about in a minute will assist with addressing strategy 1, which is deflection at arrest and booking, and strategy 3, which is enhancing pretrial services. But all of the work that we do, as you can see with those foundational strategies, are undergirded by a focus on data utilization, a focus on racial equity, and a focus on community engagement. These positions will be within pretrial services, which is a division within the Strategic Partnerships Department. As a reminder of the work that pretrial services does, there are 2 main functions, which include risk assessments and pretrial supervision. The risk assessments that they conduct now are for those people who have been booked into the detention facility. They gather that information about the risk of those individuals, and that information goes to judicial officials to help inform decision-making about bond and whether or not they can safely wait in the community and their risk for committing additional crimes or risk for not appearing, failing to appear for court. Pretrial services also conducts supervised release. So judicial officials, judges might order pretrial supervision as a condition of release, and there are different levels depending on risk, from administrative up to high risk. So everything from a weekly check-in by phone all the way up to electronic monitoring, a range of different accountability measures to help keep a connection between somebody who's waiting for disposition of their criminal, this defendant waiting up for their disposition, and when it's time for that to be completed. And that that division currently has 14 positions. One of them is already a Safety and Justice Challenge grant-funded position that was previously approved. This particular request that will come before you in a couple of weeks is to ask for positions to help with a new function, which is to conduct those risk assessments. We're going to be using a new tool called the PSA, or Public Safety Assessment, that our local partners are working on the implementation plan for. They will conduct that risk assessment at a different phase in the criminal justice process, so a little earlier, at the magistrate level, at that pre-booking phase, rather than for the first time after somebody has already been booked between their booking and their first appearance. So moving it up earlier in the process requires a 24/7 presence in order to assist those magistrates who are judicial officials in making those initial determinations. And this particular strategy addresses one of the things that we saw when we assessed our local jail population around the very high number of people that come in to our detention facility and stay for short periods of time. We think more information at an earlier stage in the process might help that. So these positions that we're requesting, the Board of Commissioners need to approve the creation of these positions in order for us to move forward. There will be 4 full-time and 2 part-time in order to achieve that 24/7 coverage and have fill-in for when people are away. And these would be pre-trial screeners that are 100% funded by the grant, and time limited for the life of grant and abolished after the end of the grant. We post a lot of information on a regular basis about the grant, including the work groups and the strategies and the activities and budget online. So if any commissioner or member of the public is interested in keeping up with that information, the website is buncombecounty.org/SJC.
All right, very good. Are there any questions?
Right, you. Are we posting these positions as permanent or as temporary positions, since what the grant is only paying for 2 years?
I used the term time limited because these positions don't exactly fit the definition per our personnel ordinance of a temporary position because of the full benefits that they're offered. So we passed the Board of Commissioners adopted earlier this year, I think it was April, a grant-funded position policy. They would be consistent with the guidelines in that policy, time limited to end at the end of when the grant goes away, the positions would go away, but they're not technically classified as temporary if you were to look at the designation in the HR system.
Good, thanks.
So they automatically go away. When they're hired, the people that are hired know these positions are going away.
They do, and it will be a part of what they consent to when they come on, and we would add a date into Workday, which is our software, to make sure that that happens on time.
And do we have a policy that, if we have grant funding for some positions that they, as in this case, they are, limited to the length of time that we have the grants, or is it just kind of on a case-by-case basis? In some cases, there might be an expectation that the positions continue, indefinitely. In this, in other cases, there's a conscious decision made that, basically we have funding only for this period of time, or we sort of handle it differently in different situations.
The name of the policy that the Board of Commissioners passed, if the slide could come back up. I think it's called Grant-Funded Positions Policy, and my recollection is that it addresses that.
When was that adopted again?
April.
So you might, when you do your presentation to the board.
Right here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, you might have that policy in there. It might help, so that we asked a question.
I agree, thanks.
Very good. All right, thanks, Rachel. That's the last item on the agenda. Are there any address before we adjourn? Before we have a special meeting at 4:30. All right, we're adjourned, and we'll reconvene at 4:30 to go into a closed session prior to our regular 5 o'clock meeting. Hockaday, is there anything else we need to say about the purpose of the closed session?
Just that it's pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.111A3. There's a matter to just consult with an attorney and hear a report, and then there's another matter to consult with an attorney retained by the body in the matter of County of Buncombe versus Joe Wiseman, 18 CBS 04206.
All right, is there a motion to go into closed session?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We hope to start our regular meeting at 5 o'clock or close to it, but it might be slightly delayed just based on how long the closed session lasts. We will reconvene and then go into open session for our regular scheduled meeting.
Get lots of money out of Joe.
It won't be much.
Vote off first.
We'll see it. Okay.
Very well.
It's great to see people.
Somewhere between
Okay. Hey, we need a vote to go back into open session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, is there a motion to close the specially called meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you all for your patience. So we'll now call our regularly scheduled meeting to order. The October 1st, 2019 meeting. Let's begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise and join us in the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, since our last meeting, although it may not feel like it from recent temperatures, the last days of summer have officially passed. Buncombe County is a place where people travel to from all over the country and all over the world to enjoy the beauty of our mountains and our community. Before we begin our meeting this evening, let's take a moment to reflect on how fortunate we are to live in these beautiful mountains. Let us have a moment for silent prayer or appreciation for our mountain home, which we have inherited, and to be good stewards of this creation for our children and all those who will come after. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. I'd like to announce that we have parking validation and bus passes available for any members of the public who use the county parking garage next door to attend this meeting or use transit to attend the meeting. You can pick up parking validation or transit passes, or transit validation from any of the officers who are here this evening. Feel free to see them on the way out. I'm going to read the ethics reminder to the board. In accordance with the code of ethics adopted by the board, all county commissioners have a duty to obey all applicable laws regarding official actions, to uphold the integrity and independence of the office, and to avoid impropriety in the exercise of official duties, and to faithfully perform the duties of the office, to conduct the affairs of the governing board in an open and public manner. Are there any items on the agenda, the outcome of which would have a direct, substantial, and readily identifiable financial impact for any board member? Does any board member have any financial interest in any public contract coming before the board today? There being none, all board members have a duty and obligation to vote on any matters voted on by the board at this meeting. Okay, we come to the consent agenda, and I've heard a request that we move the, in the consideration of the rest of the agenda, I've heard a request that we move the financial quarterly report up on the agenda. Is that what you were asking for, Ms. Pender? I'm sorry, okay, yeah, all right, so the presentation, the proclamation first, but the residential waste collection discussion we will move up to, and we'll take that up immediately after the manufacturing week and day proclamation. Okay. Sounds good. We are also going to take the task order 20-03 contract item off of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda? All in favor, please say, I'm sorry. Does any member of the public have a question about any items on the consent agenda? All right. All in favor of the other items on the consent agenda, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Under good news, we've got Nate Pennington, who is going to be presenting an affordable housing recognition. Or did you want, I'm sorry, that was what I had first on the agenda. You want to, okay, Nate, hang on, we're going to come back to you, all right? But we're going to do the manufacturing day and week proclamation, all right? And then we'll do that. So we've got a resolution, and Commissioner Amanda Edwards is going to present it for us. You want to go? Why don't you go up to the mic? Yeah, that'd be great. And thank you for doing that.
Proclamation in support of Manufacturing Day by the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners. Whereas North Carolina is home to the largest manufacturing workforce in the Southeast and the 9th largest in the United States, employing more than 470,000 workers, representing more than 10% of the total workforce. And whereas Buncombe County is home to over 350 manufacturing firms specializing in the manufacture of a wide range of products, including automotive and heavy-duty truck components, aviation components, food and beverage, plastics, healthcare devices, printing and related support activities, and more. And whereas, over the past 5 years, manufacturing jobs have increased by more than 20% in Buncombe County, adding approximately 2,400 jobs. And whereas, manufacturing firms in Buncombe County support educational institutions, including Asheville City Schools, Buncombe County Schools, AB Tech, UNC Asheville, Western Carolina University, along with many other educational institutions, nonprofits, and charities in the county. And whereas Asheville City Schools, Buncombe County Schools, AB Tech, and other educational institutions in the region offer state-of-the-art instruction in high-demand careers, serving the workforce needs of manufacturing employees in the region. And whereas 4 of the top 10 property taxpayers in Buncombe County are manufacturing firms. And whereas manufacturing firms in the region have invested more than $1 billion in capital investment over the past decade. And whereas Buncombe County's average manufacturing wage in the county is $66,907, which makes manufacturing one of the highest paying sectors in the county. And whereas Buncombe County's 13,000 plus manufacturing jobs generate direct wages of over $800 million annually. And whereas, as part of the National Manufacturing Week, the week of September 30th to October 4th, and Manufacturing Day, October 4th, 2019, thousands of educators, teachers, and workforce partners will visit local manufacturing firms to increase awareness of the career opportunities available in this sector. And now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Buncombe County Board of Commissioners as follows, that October 4th, 2018 be declared Manufacturing Day in Buncombe County. That citizens be urged to recognize the contribution that our local manufacturing sector makes in the successful growth, development, and economic health of our entire community. This is adopted on the first day of October 2019 by Brownie Newman, Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner, and I think we've got a couple of folks here who would like to say a few words about that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hey, Clark.
If I may recognize some partners that are with us tonight. If y'all would stand, Kevin Kemery, Director of Customized Industry Training with AB Tech, my colleague April Brown, who leads Industry Expansion Services and Workforce Development Services for our EDC, of course Nathan Ramsey, and Barbara Darby representing the Mountain Area Workforce Development Board. And in her absence, I'll also mention that our good friend Amy Sparks was here earlier this evening but had to depart, representing NICRO and their 350 employees in South Buncombe County. Thank you for this proclamation, but most importantly for the leadership of the Commission in championing the growth in this sector that is driving wages and sustainable tax growth in our community, and perhaps most importantly, offering meaningful career ladders and economic opportunity for our residents, regardless of previous work or educational experience. So I will give you, believe it or not, 2 more data points, and then I'll get out of your hair. Over the last 5 years, the Asheville metro area has led the 10 most populous metros in North Carolina in percentage growth of GDP and percentage growth of manufacturing jobs. And that's pretty impressive for the 6th largest metro area in our state. We'll be celebrating that this coming Friday, October the 4th, from 11 to 2 at Thermo Fisher Scientific in Weaverville. You're all invited to join us there. If you can't make it, we also have some stickers. I'll let Tim deliver to you if you'd like to mark the day proudly with on your lapel. Thank you for this opportunity and recognition for our important citizens in manufacturing.
Thank you, Clark, and thank you all for being here. All right, and Commissioner Ramsey, it's always great to see you back at the county. Thank you for being with us, for all your work in this important arena. All right, so we agreed we're going to move up the residential waste collection item on the agenda, so we'll take that up now, and I believe we have Dane Cedarson with us to do a short presentation.
He's already presented. We have people in the audience that some of them want to be home before dark, and we just need to hear from the people that Dane and him can answer.
I'll do whatever the pleasure of the board is on this. It is.
He doesn't have a new presentation, it's the same from last time.
It's the same information as last time. That's fine. If you guys would like to just take public comment, that's fine with me.
Y'all want to have Dane just come up there where he's close by and be ready.
Then he can answer questions, but he doesn't need to present.
Okay, that's fine. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment on this item? Yes, ma'am. We'll start with you. Yes, sir. Yes, so coming up, and please share your name and where you live, and who are the other folks who wanted to comment at the microphone? Yes, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak with us, and there'll be you'll get a light when you have 30 seconds left, and when the red light comes on, you've had your 3 minutes. We want to treat everyone the same, so when your 3 minutes is up, please discontinue your comments at that time.
Chairman, can I just suggest something that maybe Dane, maybe you could jot down just the questions that they have, Then when everybody's finished, you could come up and address them. Chairman, would that be okay? That way people would get all their questions asked and maybe
I
it'd
think
move
that's,
along
I
pretty
think
quick.
that's fine. Instead of, instead of folks kind of, let's get all the comments and questions on the table, and then I'm sure it'd be great to have our staff comment to respond to some of the questions and concerns.
Okay, so I should start talking when this starts, yes?
You're fine to go ahead and start, yes ma'am. Go ahead,
Okay.
there you go.
If you look at me, how am I going to handle one of these carts on a gravel driveway, like 500 feet? You can see what I look like. This is too heavy. My husband, we're both 83. He has heart problems, back problems. He can't do it. Sometimes our son can do it for us, but not all the time. The driveway is, someone said 500 feet. It takes me 3.5 minutes to walk. What are we supposed to do? It's gravel, it's not smooth pavement as you would find in the city. Now we manage, if no one else is available, I can lift one of the bags, put it in the car, well, put all the bags in the car, one at a time, and take them to the road. I can't manage a cart and all of that. Let's see. I'd like to know if we haven't correctly estimated on what kind of cart we're getting, how and when could we change and what would it cost? What should we do if their carts, we'll probably wind up leaving them by the road. There's no pavement. I mean, the road's paved, but there's no pavement on the side of the road. There's no curb, no pavement. What if the carts get stolen or vandalized? I'll put our address on them, though. How stable are they on a slight slope? Remember, this is not a nice city lawn. Or something like that. This is the country. I don't know what people were thinking of. Will the cart be put back exactly in the same place? We'll have to have them someplace where the mailman won't be inconvenienced, where he can get to the mailbox. What if everything doesn't fit in the can? After out-of-town visitors, for instance. Now, you're raising the price, reducing the service every other week, and causing problems for people with long driveways. What about the people who had expensive bear-proof cans? How many people will lose their jobs in January? Well, okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, who would like to go next? Sure. Yeah, let's take the pictures, and then we'll kind of work on this side of the room, and then we'll come over. So yes, ma'am, you may go next, and then who else on this side of the room would like to speak? Okay.
Hi, my name is Vicki O'Shields. I live in Fairview. Most of my sentiments were expressed by this lady, the concerns about the long driveway. We have quite a hill on our driveway. We live about 660 feet from 74A. Right now, we can take our garbage to 74A in our car, but we cannot take it in a container going forward. And so what we will end up doing is canceling our Waste Pro contract and taking our garbage to the transfer station probably, which if enough people do that, then there's going to be the issue of probably higher costs to the people left because of the loss of revenue to Waste Pro, but also, and I just lost my train of thought, but also the increased services that would be necessary at the transfer station. And then the other thing, as the previous speaker mentioned about people leaving their cans at the road, then that's going to create traffic hazards. That's going to create an eyesore, because here we're going to be driving down 74, Old Fort Road, any of the roads in the country, and you're going to be seeing Waste Pro cans all on the side of the road. And so I just think there needs to be a better solution for the county. I understand the reasons behind all of this, but I think there needs to be a better solution for the county, because one size doesn't fit all, and what works in the city, what works in the subdivision does not really work well in the county. So I would hope you would reconsider and come up with a better solution. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, who over here? Yes, ma'am, we'll start with you. And then who else on this side? And then this gentleman can go next.
Hello, my name is Candace Yount. I live at 15 Echoing Ridge in Fairview. And I think this is a maybe not quite completely thought out for a number of reasons, and I agree with what was stated previously here. My big concern is safety. Safety is a big deal, especially on our skinny little roads. In my case, 6.5 miles of windy road with banks and curves that you can't see around. We're going to have bad weather. These cans cannot be put in a flat surface in many cases. They're going to be teetering. There's going to be wind, and there's going to be bad weather. They're going to be blowing in the road. We already have a dangerous road because of the lay of the land. This is really a safety concern, and that's my number one issue. Number two, it's almost impossible. We can't take one of these big things from our house and put it into a truck. We can't do it. So right now, we have extra tough garbage contractor bags. We get up at 5 in the morning and we haul them down in our cars. We can't haul this. These things, these receptacles are going to be all over the place. Now, we're all concerned and we're very happy with the fact that we have this beautiful landscape. And we do a lot with the Chamber of Commerce to promote people coming here. What is that going to look like? It's going to look like perpetual garbage day, because we're going to have these cans out there unsightly. They don't look good. And no matter what you do, they're going to be blowing around, and they're not going to be looking good. They're going to be an inconvenience. But hey, we got to look at the safety issue, number one. Okay, that's about all I had to say. Thank you for your attention.
Great, thank you very much.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to share some thoughts with you. I'm John Hoffman. I'm here with my wife, Renee. We live at the Broad River community off Highway 9, about 10 miles south of Black Mountain. I think it's pretty clear this was a plan to implement an urban city type trash solution to reduce cost, without much consideration of the fact that many of us live in an urban forest interface. That has connotations, many of which you've heard here already. We're used to delivering to collection points along Highway 9, up and down that entire road. If you drive it on Thursday morning, you'll see piles of trash out on the sides of the road that are picked up. That has not been considered in this situation, because hauling a trash can down from our house to mile-plus gravel road, about a 700-foot elevation change. You're not going to drag one of these that way, and it's difficult to put in your car to bring it down and bring it back up. This is going to be a challenge. Elderly people like myself, it's even more of a challenge. So this has got to have a better solution. Given the fact that we have a collection system already in place, why was this not considered? I don't think this was well thought out. If we continue the collection process as we've been doing, but change a little bit how we do it, we could solve this problem. National Park uses very large bear-proof type containers in the parks. Why couldn't we be using those? We bring our trash, put it in those containers, one of their big trucks drives up, picks it up, dumps it, and drives away. It's a lot less work for them, and it would save us having to tote these containers or having them all over the road. We're using collection points already. Let's work with those collection points. Where we are, you could do this at the fire department, put one for trash, one for recycling. Everybody brings their stuff down, puts it in the containers, and Waste Pro comes and empties it. Instead of having to drive up Rock Creek Road and hit all these collection points where everything is now stashed. This is a very simple solution. I think it would be something that could be easily thought out, wouldn't cost the county. It's Waste Pro's responsibility to pick it up. Instead of distributing all these idiot trash cans, which don't work in an urban forest environment, as has already been demonstrated, you put collection points in. They're not really transfer stations. They don't have to be attended. They're simply very large containers in which the trash can go. They can be put behind trees, they can be put out of sight, and they're not going to be sitting on the side of Highway 9 like the trash is every morning now. So I see it as an improvement. I think that Dane needs to get with Waste Pro. They need to be charged with responsibility to come up with a solution that works on the urban forest interface. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Hoffman. Who else? This gentleman on the here, and then Mr. Yeldon, you can go next. Okay, we'll get there.
I'm Ron Edwards. I live off of Ball Gap Road. I've got the same concerns that the rest of these people have. I've got an 8 mile plus, and I've got to drag a 96-gallon trash can up every Tuesday. It's not going to happen. I'm going to end up leaving it sitting on the side of the road.
I can see you.
Okay, okay. The other issue that I have is the fact that you're requiring us to have 2 cans. One for trash and one for recycle. If we choose not to use the recycle, we still get charged. Irregardless, we have to pay for it. I'm not sure that should be that way. That being said, those are the 2 main concerns I've got. So hopefully y'all can do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Mr. Yeldon.
I'd like to go really deep in this issue. First and foremost, I think you've heard all the reasons there's going to be problems with the system. But I would like to suggest that you put your brakes on, stop, right where you're at. Because when I look at reading the explanation of the system, I find if I have a missed trash pickup day, the first person I call is Waste Pro. That should not be. It should be someone in the county documenting those missed calls. Number 2, there are lots of problems with these containers, as just been pointed out. You've heard them all. Now the other problem though, because I do know that Waste Pro has been working with Florida very well trying to solve problems. And I think they want this contract or they would not have bid it for that price. Because all the other people are talking about $35 and $40 a month to do what they're doing. So they want it. And guess what? If they'll solve these problems in the county, then they can turn around and go to the city where, ma'am, they do have that density in the city, and they can save the city residents about $7 to $8 a month per house. So I think it behooves Buncombe County to take the leadership in this. You commissioners say, whoa, right now, let's take our time, let's look at this, because I just read an article today about a brand new recycling plant being. Listen to what they recycle. Film, bags, blue bags that are no good, grocery bags that's no good. They bale those up as film. They bale up hard plastic. They bale up aluminum. They bale up metal. And they bale up clean paper, not been contaminated with glass. Glass is the #1 contaminant of your recyclables, and the people that are throwing them in with your recyclables are destroying the value of the paper, which is why China quit buying it. So this problem goes far beyond this board, far beyond Waste Pro, far beyond these people's problems. And by the way, he's talking about putting that dumpster out there. I've never seen a dumpster anywhere that didn't have trash around it. And the problem Waste Pro has with that is, are they being paid by each person that dumps that trash in there? So the bag tag system will work for those people that refuse. and don't want to use or can't use a rollout cart. The bag tag system is very simple. You have a monthly access fee, and they buy the tags for $1 a bag and attach them to the bag, and Waste Pro doesn't pick up anything that's not got a tag on it or in one of their containers. It's for those people that want containers. So I think they want to solve the problem, folks. You all are going to have to provide the leadership to see that happens.
All right, who else? Yes, sir. And then Mr. Rice, you can follow this.
My name's John Hogan. I live in Fairview, Bishop Ridge Road. I think I vote for that gentleman right there for this election this week. Appreciate your words, sir. I'm one of 6 families that lives way back from the highway, from 74A. I have questions. Waste Pros here would like answers. First of all, whose legal opinion is it that we can put their property on the state right-of-way? 74A has a 14-foot right-of-way on either side of the curb, all the way from Reynolds to wherever it ends. In front of my property, the right-of-way is 40 feet. It's sloped, 45-degree angle almost. There is no place for us to put these cans near the curb within reach of a Waste Pro truck. It just doesn't exist. The state re-engineered all the driveways when they widened the road. So if we were to get, for our 6 families, 12 cans up at the end of the road where it joins 74A, you would find it impossible to see how to get onto the highway. You'd be looking at nothing but cans because you're coming up a hill like this, the road's like that, and you're gonna have cans and guardrails on both sides. There'd be no visibility to safely get onto the highway, or if you're trying to turn onto our road, to be able to make the turn and see if there was a car sitting there waiting to get out. It's totally unsafe. We are told, I called Waste Pro this morning, I was told they own the carts, but we have responsibility for them. If they blow into the highway and cause an accident, it's our problem, not theirs. I don't buy that for a second. They tell us where to put it, it's their cart, they come, lift them up, empty them, put them back down, theoretically in the same place, and then it's our responsibility if stuff happens at that point. They're gonna get blown on the highway 20 times a week. It's gonna be like driving through an obstacle course. The whole thing is totally unsafe. I'd like to see someone from this board and from Waste Pro meet the people of Fairview, especially like at a corner like mine, and tell us exactly how this system's gonna work where no one gets killed. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hogan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I think following up on this gentleman is a very good point. And that is, if you've got all these customers on the rural road, you got a state maintained road, and the state's got a certain access to that road. Your driveway does not connect except at that entrance. You don't have a place to put these containers. The other thing is, everybody that puts these containers at the road is going to have to build some kind of containment, even if it's a 4x4 structure, to set it on and get it away from the road, because the mowing machines are going to be coming along the road to mow. Plus, you're going to have an added expense as a customer, not just the monthly payment, but to maintain this structure that you got to set these things on. So you got to look at the bigger picture than just the trash pickup. You got to look at what we're going to have to maintain, and that's a valid point. Thank you.
Great. All right, anyone else? Yes, sir.
My name is Michael McGee, and I live on Laurel Haven Road. First of all, I agree totally with what everybody has been explaining, and I think it's been pretty well represented, and it's widely through the entire county. We have the same kind of problem that's being proposed. My main concern, though, is a little different than that, is the consistency and the continuity of delivery or pickup that comes in. We have, there's not a month goes by that we don't, our trash is not picked up. And we end up having to try to call. I'm sure Waste Pro has got us, they know exactly who we are because we constantly calling them about not picking up the trash. We live on a long dirt road, and we live at the end of the road. And we don't get our trash picked up as often as it's supposed to. That means that we're trying to call back. We often I end up carrying my trash around with me wherever I go in the back of my pickup truck because there's no place to put it when I come back to my house. So this is just another part of the problem that Waste Pro needs to really address. We would like to recycle, but the recycling part of their pickup is even worse than the trash pickup. And it ends up with a long time that we don't even have what our trash or recycling pickup. And so we've just stopped doing that. And it's unfortunate because we believe in it. But we need to get our trash picked up. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else? All right, well, thank you all for coming to our meeting this evening. We apologize that it started later than the usual 5 o'clock start time. And so thanks for your patience. Dane, would you like to just share any observations or initial kind of feedback in terms of, I'm sure you know, these are not the only times you've heard some of these questions and concerns, so any initial feedback that you would share for the public and the commission?
Absolutely. Well, thank y'all for coming in and sharing those concerns with us this evening. And understanding the challenges that you folks face and a lot of the challenges that we face at the county level in managing the waste and recycling. And obviously jotting down some of the questions and concerns that we've heard. We certainly made provisions in the contract that if there was no physically able-bodied person within a household, that accommodation would be made by Waste Pro if a doctor's note is provided, that they would provide that backdoor service at no additional charge. So that was something that we thought about. We knew that there were going to be folks that were just unable to get that material to the collection point. So we certainly understand that, and please reach out to Waste Pro regarding that with a doctor's note for that.
Dane, how would they do that? Would they contact the county, or would they send that straight to email to Waste Pro and copy the county so that we
that would be the process moving forward, is contacting Waste Pro directly or sending to Waste Pro directly and copying the county, and that way we can help with those counts as well. I think that's the process we would like to see. And also understanding the 96 gallons, which are the industry standard. We know Buncombe County is a great place to live. There's nothing standard about it. We didn't approach it like that. It's hard to get a grid overlay for all the areas because there's such a gap in consistency with the terrain. So very difficult to pick up, in a lot of these outlying areas. So we knew it was important. We started off with the 96 gallon options period. That's where we started, and we realized looking at that there was going to be substantial challenges with that size of the container for a lot of folks. So that's when we worked with Waste Pro and appreciate Waste Pro coming back with us to the table and saying, look, we can provide smaller cart size options for folks, and looking at the 48 gallon, the 64, and the 96 gallon containers. And just I heard a question about pricing. It is $19.21 per month period. That's the base price. That's including the recycle container as well as the waste rollout container and the service there for those containers. And as been mentioned, the trash is weekly collection and the recycle is every other week collection. And that was looking at other communities and how they manage the recycling stream. That was something we identified as a way that we could hopefully save costs and translate that down to subscriber fees by reducing the amount of collection trips, cutting that in half essentially by going to every other week collection for recycling. As Mr. Yelton pointed out, recycling is a dynamic industry right now. When the doors basically shut on the China side,
for exporting materials from not just our country, but, you know, a lot of other nations were impacted by that. A lot of things have changed, and that's one of our primary focuses now is to clean up our recycling stream and our materials. So this is a big step towards that. And obviously, we do look at trends in the industry, and we, you know, we'll stay in tune with that. But the plastic bags are one of the top contaminants that is impacting the recycling stream. So that was certainly something that we saw as a benefit by number one, educating, and then also providing a container so that folks can work towards pulling the bags out. Currently, as folks know, we're in the cart selection process right now. This contract is not effective until January 1st of this coming year, 2020. So services will continue as they are now until the first of the year, and we're trying to get word out. I know Waste Pro is as well, trying to touch as many subscribers as we can now, and make sure that people are getting the cart sizes that is going to work for their situation, and getting that feedback and getting those orders in. And we would anticipate, Chip, I'd say around the end of October timeframe for cart deliveries to begin. Yes, so seeing some of those carts phasing into delivery, end of October, early November timeframe. The long driveways, that was another part of the RFP proposal. We knew we had to provide an opportunity for folks if they so choose to have a premium service, which is basically going from the designated collection point, generally curbside or mailbox collection point, and if they want to choose a premium type service, that's an upcharge, but Waste Pro does provide that option to provide the backdoor type service, the premium type service. So that's basically could look like a different truck, you know, obviously for narrow lanes, things like that, but there is an additional charge for that. We knew that some folks would like that option, so we made sure we included that in the RFP as well. The safety concerns are twofold. There's safety concerns certainly on the collection side, and those are things that we targeted. You know, obviously these folks that are out picking up the waste, recycled material, they're citizens here as well, and we're looking at trying to improve safety functions on their end as well. It's the 5th most dangerous job in our nation, and 35 people were killed in 2018. So it is a huge nationwide issue with safety for these collection workers, and these are people that live here, and their friends, their families. So I certainly understand the safety concerns that have been brought up here this evening. And I know Waste Pro is currently conducting site assessments now. People are calling in requesting, saying, hey, I need you to look at this. You know, how does this look at my collection point for the rollout carts to, you know, be staged, and where does that look? So that, you know, some of these sites, that causes a little creativity. You know, we understand the constraints there, and Waste Pro is working with folks now to try to help them understand what's expected for them to bring their materials down to the collection points, and that's happening now.
Dane, most of these roads, including mine, I mean, you know, my driveway is 800 feet, and across the street in rural Campbell, and across the street from me is, their driveway's like 6, you know, and they're excited about getting a 90-some gallon. I didn't do that, I got a 48 gallon, you know, because that's all I needed, and I didn't want to haul it out there either. But where I'm at, somebody mentioned something about mailboxes. You know, the trash cans were, all our trash cans, whatever we had, were sitting out around mailboxes because there's a driveway there. And we didn't stick it in the road. And so Waste Pro had to figure out how to get those out of our driveway. I don't think that's going to be any different. I mean, there is no way that I'm going to be able to put that the people on our road, which is 4 or 5, that there's not going to be 2 cans out there each week. There's only going to be 1. So, I mean, I heard somebody mention something about 6 families having, there being 12, that'd actually be 6. But it'd be every week.
That would be for a week, big week, right?
If they recycle that much, which we do. But, you know, where my road is, my mind just went blank. Gentleman from Waste Pro. Chip, yeah. See, I was getting ready to call you Clint. But assuming that those are gonna have to be moved over, clamped, and then put in the back of the truck. There's still gonna be some labor involved, and I think people are picturing that these are gonna be beautifully lined up in Kenwood. That ain't gonna happen. You know, beautifully lined up on the road where they can just come by and clamp them and dump them in the truck. It's not gonna be that way. They're gonna be those, they're gonna still be in my driveway, our driveway. They're still gonna be lined up in that driveway, and somebody's gonna have to move them over, clamp them, and dump them, and then put them back in the driveway somewhere, you know. And I'm like most people, I'm always, anybody hunting for your lid in the room after you drop, you know, so, I mean, people are picturing it, those are gonna be lined up. They're not gonna be, they can't be. And I'm assuming that Waste Pro will be figuring that out as we go. But didn't mean to take up so much time, I just wanted to, you know, kind of paint a picture of, you know, of my roads very similar to some of the others that Shirley mentioned.
Absolutely, thank you, Commissioner.
Okay.
I did hear a comment regarding the service levels. I know that's a focus that the county has, working with Waste Pro on continuous improvement and addressing some of the issues that we've seen in the past. And we knew that was important to include in the new contract, accountability measures that are within. The performance bond was one measure we incorporated in the contract, and that's throughout the duration of the contract. That is a performance bond. And also there's a liquidated damages schedule, so that if performance level is not where that it should be, we have measures to be able to implement monetary penalties, and that's geared towards the accountability metrics. And we want to work together, and I know Waste Pro expects to be held accountable for service.
Dane?
Sir?
I have some stuff to say. I understand where we're at, but I see these people still sitting in the room. I canceled mine yesterday because I've been telling everybody that I can't get the can up my driveway. So I asked to get 33-gallon cans because there is a 33-gallon that works with these trucks. Might not work with the one with the arm on the side, but it definitely works with the trucks that dump from the rear. You're still going to have them. You're going to only have supposedly 5 of these other trucks. Most of the people in this room I see are basically from Fairview. That's where I'm from. You know, it's a little different there. You know, they're talking about 74A. It's a totally different world than where Joe lives up. But I'm sitting up here, and I look at everything that this commission has done. They have given $2.2 million to a nonprofit. We've done stuff for children, $3.6 million. We have a building next door that we do for people that are, you know, badly abused. We get people out of jail. We spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to be able to help get people out of jail. And now we're going to do drug deals over to jail, and that's going to cost the county money too. But I look in this audience, there's some 83-year-olds, and I met a 90-year-old the other day, and Menship talked about him. You know, he didn't make it tonight, but he's going to try to. He had a cane and stuff. Brownie met him. He draws $807 a month. You know, I've talked to a lady that, you know, she canceled her service, and she's going to try to figure out how to get her bag of trash a week, not 96 gallons. One little white bag, $1 a week. But when she called Waste Pro, they told her, well, they'd come up her dirt road, pick it up for $25 extra. There's your thing. She's had she's not here, but she's had cancer 3 different times. She's 77 years old, she draws $757. But we're sitting up here, we're giving money to everything in this county. This whole board just thinks up stuff to give millions of dollars to. Nonprofits, MHO, nonprofit, $2.2 million with no interest for 20 years. And we can't figure out how to help the older people. We help the kids, we help the middle, we help everybody. And as I told you, I'm part of the older generation now. Al is too, but he lives in the city. The county's different. I said, if you get a 33-gallon can, I'll stay on. And I'll drag it back up my driveway with my arm out of the car. And I've got a picture on my phone of how I do it. But I can't drag a 49-gallon, or I can't drag a 69 or a 96-gallon, period. I don't have that much trash. So somebody with a 96-gallon can fills it up, and it gets dumped in the truck. And then you got one person who puts one bag in a 96-gallon, you know, the person with the one bag is getting charged the same price as the person with the other bag. This was misthought. Us, y'all, them. And it needs to be fixed, because the guy from Broad River area, Highway 9, yeah, he's talking about different things. I've talked to people. I've talked to everybody that sent me an email, as long as it's a phone number. Everybody. I even saw the gentleman that came up here trying to figure out, you know, he called Waste Pro, and Waste Pro, we didn't, call them, they told him if he'd paid the $48, that they'd send him $16 back so he could cancel his, you know, prescription with them, or whatever you want to call it. But I'm sick of what we do to the older people. I am so sick of that. Once you get to 65, you're supposed to be able to retire. Well, there's people saying that they can't get these cans down these dirt roads. What are you saying? Nothing. Go get me a slip from the doctor. Well, I can get you a slip from the doctor, but I'm not going to. I'm going to take my trash, my 2 bags, to the transfer station. And I thank these people for coming in tonight. You know, there's more said that they would try to come. I've had calls saying that they could not come because they had health issues. Health issues are something that a lot of us have. And Chip, this is the first of the month. I canceled mine yesterday, but these people need an option. They still don't know exactly where they're at. If they decide they don't want you can, they need to be able to say, I don't want it. You know, plain and simple. It don't need to be the first month, September, don't need, you know, give them to October 15th. Give them something, you know. And 2 cans, you know, it's just like the gentleman said, it's hard to have 2 cans and be able to do whatever. But I'm looking on this front row, we got 2 people there that's 83 years old. They can't, you know, I'm proud that they're here. I'm proud of everybody that spoke. But we're sitting here talking about the same thing that we presented on that screen over and over and over. It's time to figure out how we can help. We can sit here and watch the nonprofits walk in the room and they walk out with millions of dollars. We sit here and watch some people that are having a problem, they can't do something, and we can't figure out how to fix it. Now, it's time to fix it. That's what I'm saying. If you don't like it, I'm sorry. I told you back when I voted for it, and people's mad because I voted for it. I told you. I was going to cancel my service because I couldn't, but I couldn't tell all these people that they couldn't have a service. That's tons of trash sitting on the side of the road. Broad River guy says they live, you know, he told me 1.5 miles from an area, and I don't know if this guy's part of him or not. But they had a place to put it. They put it that morning. It was picked up that morning. The bags were picked up. I want Waste Pro to make every dime. Don, you know, sticker bags or just furnish bags or whatever you want to furnish. But something besides these heavy cans that people can't pick up. Period. If Waste Pro wants to go buy a bunch of bags, they can get them a lot cheaper than we can and distribute them to people to put out. That way they know it's their bag and it can be picked up. And, you know, if you got 12 houses in a neighborhood and in the second week you try to put something on somebody's property that's allowing you to put the bags, how are you going to put 24 cans and then pick them up? The one-armed bandit ain't going to pick all of them up because they're going to be sitting in different, you know, a smaller area back to back. We're going to have to separate them to get to them. But I've heard this over and over. Now I want to hear something that's going to help the people, because it's like I said, I'm tired of people walking in this room and walking out with millions of dollars, and we got people walking in this room that are elderly, like me. Call it anything you want, old or elderly. They can't get a can down the hill. What are we going to do with the person that tries to get the can down the hill and they fall and break a hip? We can do nothing for them. They just go to the hospital, nursing home, whatever. No, we're not thinking in the right form here. And, you know, any questions that I've heard tonight, the same answers you're giving, the same thing that I've heard over and over and over again. And I don't want to hear them over and over and over again. I want to see something done. So we as commissioners need to figure out what we can do. You know, we don't need to worry about solar panels today. We need to worry about the old people and how to get their trash out of the yard. We don't need to be spending money in certain areas that we could care less about right now. I'm sorry, you know, but I am sorry. I'm telling the people here, I'm sorry for what you're having to go through. You know, some didn't speak. I see them sitting here. I'm sure glad you came. And I've got a note here, somebody written to me. I don't know if you're in the audience or not, but it explains a whole lot, you know. And I guess they had to leave because it took us so long to get out of the back. But you know, I don't know if the gentleman was here. And I had a gentleman in Fairview with a cane. He couldn't hardly walk out of the building. And he said, "We got to do something." He said, I can't get the trash can down there. What am I going to do? So, figure something out. We made a bad decision, okay? Chip, need some help. We've cost a little bit more money. Hey, let's come up with some more money and try to help our people that are out here. We come up millions of dollars for kids and this and that. We can't come up with a damn nickel for the elderly. Thank you.
Any other comments you want to share?
Well, thank you for those comments, Commissioner. Yeah, and one of the considerations as well is, as it has been for a long time with the containers, you know, it's technically a non-conforming use to have bags on the ground. So that's something we were obviously conscious of with our ordinance, is that is a non-conforming use. So those are things that, you know, we also had to consider, making sure that it's in a fly-resistant and water-resistant container. So that's.
When you say it's a non-conforming use, I'm sorry, what does that mean?
Well, there's nothing in the ordinance that allows folks to place bags directly on the ground now. Obviously, it happens a lot. So, you know, the container size that's spelled out in our solid waste ordinance is for that to be in a container, period, and for that to be fly resistant and water resistant. So that was, you know, same things we've talked about in the past with providing containers. We knew that would meet the environmental code compliance as well as work with the trucks.
Right.
I just want to thank you, Dane. I know for every email that was addressed only to me as a commissioner, not to a group, that I forwarded to you, that you personally called and responded back to each of those emails. And I know that was a lot of time on your part, and I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. And Johnny Lee at Waste Pro as well responded personally to everyone that I forwarded to him as well. So I want to pass that thank you along to him as well.
Thank you.
But one more thing.
Let's let the other commissioners comment. Commissioner Whitesides.
One of the concerns that I have, I think back when we did this in the city where it's mandatory. One of the problems I see here, though, the main problem, because I read all the emails that come by, and boy, it's been a lot, but I think we got a communication problem, folks. And on over, I'd say 70% of the emails that I read, people have complaints. And it's things that I believe can be worked out from what you've said, but they can't get through. That nobody's on the other end of the line, or it's busy, or they can't. I even tried to call the number once, and I agree, I know the problem. We can't get through. What can we do to remedy that? Because I think a lot of it, we can solve a lot of these problems with the lady, and she can't bring the can back and forth. But when you mention a doctor, you know, a certificate from the doctor and all, that's great. But if we can't get to anybody to tell them this and to work that out, boom, we got a problem. That's my concern. It's just basic. How do we get through?
If you were my neighbor, your bag would be in mine. Don't want Waste Pro here to know that. But your bag would be in my can.
Yeah.
If you was my neighbor. And you know, I'm not gonna get on that horse, because I'll be on here a long time about, I'm not, yeah, you're glad.
Otherwise.
Yeah. I can't get on that, but here's what I'm hearing. I didn't mean to interrupt you, you keep going.
Yeah, but that's my concern. What can we do with the communication to make sure that when people do have a complaint or problem that they need worked out, that they can get it done? And not that they have to go through Florida, God knows where, to get it done. You know, can we have a dedicated line or 3 lines or whatever it takes here in Buncombe County? I think that's a big part of the frustration that everybody has. And I agree with what several commissioners have. You know, we're going over and over this. But it looks like to me, let's go back to the basics and see what we can work out in the communication in doing that. Because I remember we complained about them in Asheville when we did it, all of us, with the cans. Now we wouldn't have it any other way. And we have some, if you go to Town Mountain Road in some of the areas, we have some, I wouldn't want to have to go up the driveway, so it's tough. But we could get through and talk to people. And I think that's one of the problems I see. It's just basic communication. I'm through.
Commissioner Presley?
Yeah, I think all of us has covered everything. I just want to thank, you know, Waste Pro for stepping up and taking this, because a lot of us got to understand, no one else bidded on this, you know. At least we're going to have somewhere picking up some trash if you've canceled or whatever. But Dane, the couple questions been brought up, the vandalism of them, who's responsible for that? They, you know, there's a difference of going down the city at 15 miles an hour and sucking a trash can out in the road, but going down 74 or 1923 and someone hits it, I agree. Somebody's got to be responsible. I mean, there's so many questions here and we didn't go over it with everybody. But I agree with what Don Yelton said, probably made the most sense of everything. It's just, let's put it on hold and find a solution for this. And I think with the commissioners, Waste Pro, yourself, Dane, we can fix this problem. You know, it was something thrown out on everyone that this is a way it's going to be. And I think everyone needs to understand, the bags, whenever you're picking them up and there's glass in them, and the guy in the back getting stabbed with a needle, or, you know, our truck driver, 38 deaths about back of them trucks. I mean, there is a solution, and I think we and everyone here can fix it if the communication, like Commissioner Whiteside said, that fixes a lot of trouble. Go back to what Joe Belcher always says, do the math. You know.
So let me say this, okay, I don't want anybody to forget, we have a contract, right?
Yes, sir.
We have a contract with Waste Pro. These exceptions have been brought up, correct? In that contract, Waste Pro is responsible to deal with these exceptions. Is that correct?
So the exceptions,
Whatever exceptions there are, they're supposed to handle them. You know, that's not, I mean, you know, my email, my phone, people can call me if they want to, and they should. But that contract is with Waste Pro. We've said this before, they have a contract. They have, and they're the only ones that bid this contract. And I don't disagree with some of what, with Commissioner Fryer, each of these are problems. Each one has a solution. And so what should be done is each of these issues that were brought up tonight, which can and will always be very emotional, they should be dealt with in a factual manner. What Commissioner Whiteside said was not a bad idea. If it takes adding 2 lines, it takes adding 3 lines, you add 3 lines, you know, that's not hard to pull off, right? I mean, you was in your former company and I was in mine, that's what you would do. You would deal, you got a contract. We entered into that contract because there was some very serious reasons, and it was the best negotiated contract, correct?
yes, sir.
That's why, and every commissioner voted for it. And they probably nod their heads on that. But each of these exceptions should be dealt with, and we should be reported back to us that they have been dealt with. To me, that's pretty simple. You know, whether it's a short driveway, long driveway, concerned with the size of the can. Each person has their concerns, and we should enter into that. There has been teeth put in this contract. I mean, and we have used it, haven't we, Dane? It has been used, and Waste Pro responded very positively to that. So, you know, rather than our board getting very emotional on each of these items, and we should, but we got to get past the emotion, jot down the facts, and fix it. Fix it, whatever it is. If it's communication, no problem. Add some lines, fix it. Okay. If we've got a couple that can't get their trash, we figure out a way to do it. You know, and I think, I know your team is sharp enough to do it, and I know that Waste Pro is the experts in doing that too. Not the first time that they've heard any of these issues, I'm sure. We should document them and then find a solution for them, and then just report back to the commission. We got time between now and January. We can work out these things. I'll let you.
My point was going to be that we have jotted down a lot of the questions, the answers, and we have come up with answers to a lot of the questions. The answers, though, the Commissioner Furness' point, you've heard them over and over, but they're not acceptable. So if you want us to go back to the drawing board and talk to the contractor again, we can do that, but we have found answers to the majority of the questions, and we have made them pointed clear. And we have also added lines that they can answer. So we have done.
We have added them at the county level?
Not at the county level. It has been, the contractor has increased the lines to his contract for his call center. He has a call center so people can now get through. But when we come back to the answers to the questions that has been raised, we have solutions to them, but they're not acceptable. So we're here again.
Well,
so I would like some consensus from the board of where you want us to go and what you want us to do, and we will work on that.
Okay. I have a note up here that was written to me. I haven't read the whole thing yet, but it's, you know, it was, I guess it was left when people left. But we have people out there that have bare containers. Now they're gonna cost $300 to get them another bare container, you know. Excuse me.
So can I say one thing on that? It'll help you. Don't look at me like you're gonna eat me. It'll help you. Okay. How many of those do we have? I keep hearing that. I keep, you know, with all due respect to the county manager, I heard what you said. How many bare containers we got? How many would we have to replace? Okay. The emotion is, well, by gosh, I got a bare container. What am I going to do about it? And how much is it? Got it. But how many we got? We got 5. We got 10. If we got 10, that's $3,000. I'll replace it. I mean, I don't know how many we got. I have no idea. So I just want the facts. So there may be a zillion of them out there. I don't know. But I'd like to know what that is. If that's a real issue, here's what I'm saying. Document it. Tell me how many it is so we can get beyond the emotional part of it. Okay? And then we do the math and we figure out, to the commissioner's point, you know, you got on some other things, Mike, about that the commission has paid for, which is true. Not everybody supported, some did. But we do the math. How much is it going to cost to fix these issues? And, you know, I have a question. I haven't heard, what do I do with an old? Nobody raised that up. Maybe you did, but I hadn't heard that. My wife's asked that one. What do we do with the old one that we got?
Yes, and that is in the works now. We're going to provide the opportunity to recycle as many of those containers as we can. We're going to look at a time frame, not just a day to do that. We want to draw that out for folks so they have opportunity over time. And what we're targeting right now is the transfer station and landfill for folks to be able to bring those containers to us, no charge. And we're going to work with a recycler out of the Charlotte area that we're working with Waste Pro on to be able to recycle as many of those units as we can.
So let me give you an easier way to do it, and I really don't want this going all night. But I'll stay here if I need to. Give us a tag. I'll tag them, put them out there, and let them just come by and pick them up. Just put a tag on it. You know, it's a bright orange tag, it's recyclable, whatever it is, and we'll just zip tie that sucker to it, and they can come out and get it. That way, everybody doesn't have to go to the landfill, because people are going to pitch a fit about that. We put an email out that says, okay, here's what you're going to do with your recyclable. You can take it to the landfill. Have a nice day. We're going to get emails like crazy on that. and this is just what I used to call green light thinking and thoughts and processes and stuff. I want to come out to Dane that, you know, your concerns should be brought to us, and we should do our best to work with Waste Pro fixing. But y'all have worked hard on this contract, and I want to thank you for the work that you're doing and the way you're taking these concerns, and I know you really care about it, and I appreciate it. So we just got to, you know, get beyond the, say, I don't know the exact number of, and I just want to see the facts, because this is very emotional. I mean, you're talking about folks that, you know, that are old, and, you know, I mean, goodness, I'm 64. Where's he be? Oh, yeah, you got me beat.
But can I come back now?
Go ahead.
All right. I'm coming back. We have people out there that, you know, pretty well Waste Pro. I've got a neighbor that's got a new 96-gallon can. It's black. And I asked Chip, I had a meeting with him the other day, I said, why can't we just put a Waste Pro sticker on top of it with a number, instead of having them to have to go buy, or not buy, but have these two different cans. So my neighbor has got all this money involved. I've got a lady that lives behind me that's got a 33-gallon, which I could probably pull up my driveway, that will work on the back of these trucks. It flips them in the trash into the back of the truck. And they paid $75 for their can. Now, how are they going to do it then? Why do you want to take a $75 can and take it and get it recycled? I got one I wore the bottom out of it. It's took about 30 years, but it still holds 2 wide bags of trash really good. And, you know, it's like I said, we can figure it out, but it's not figured out yet. I don't care what anybody says. I'm still looking at these people, and I spoke to everyone that sent me an email. If it had a number on it, I didn't send it to Dane. I called them, and they came back to me. So that's where I'm at, and that's why I have this job.
Why don't we, we've got a representative from Waste Pro here, taking all this in, and I'm sure obviously y'all have been listening to this. So thanks for being here. Chip, do you have any observations you want to share with us? This is a new contract, and obviously everyone's starting to live into it, seeing what's working well, seeing some issues. So thank you for being here. Do you have any, I don't think this is just on the agenda for discussion and listening to the public. I don't anticipate we're going to take any specific action tonight, but we appreciate the chance to continue talking about it, and we welcome any thoughts you have for this tonight.
Well, you know, we appreciate the opportunity to serve the county, and we're definitely working with the staff to resolve as many of these issues as possible. I wish we'd had some of these discussions prior to, you know, the execution of the agreement. You know, now a lot is underway. You know, trucks have been ordered. A lot of costs have gone forward. So, you know, I understand. We'll just continue to work with the staff and hopefully come up with the solutions that you're looking for. It's not always as easy as it seems. You know, just like the 35-gallon containers. You know, the automated trucks, you know, you have to think about it. They're picking up a 96, 64, 48. So they can get down to a 35-size gallon container. Oftentimes those fall in the back of the truck, which would mean that we need to change, you know, the types, the style trucks that would have to pick it up. It would change the type of service that we have to offer. And there's a lot that goes into that. So, you know, I think those are the questions that, you know, it sounds like your county manager was actually kind of pointing to, that, you know, if we're going to have real discussion about those things, you know, we'd have to be open to making some serious changes and understand that that could impact a lot of different things. So, we're here for you. We want to be a good partner to the county, and we're happy to be here. So.
Good. Chip, we had a good meeting.
Yes, sir.
But what I'm saying in here is I'm not trying to hurt Waste Pro.
Correct.
Period. I'm trying to help other people. And it's like I said, we spend millions of dollars sitting up here to do stuff for other people. there's got to be some room somewhere that we can put some money out there to help Waste Pro and Dane and whatever, to be able to pick these, get up these hills to pick these people's trash up. They are the residents. They're the one that made this county, okay? Everybody says children. Well, you got your children, we're all children, then you become adults, and you have children, and you have grandchildren. Then you become people that need help again. And we have people that need help. Or the Race Pro wants to do it, or the county wants to do it. I work for the county, and I'm sitting here saying, we have to be able to help the people. We can give money away to Mountain Housing, or we give stuff away for them to go fix, houses where they can have a little better heat, but we can't help them get their trash down to the roof. So there's a problem in that. And, I've been on it, and it's a serious item as far as I'm concerned. If we can give $85,000 to somebody to go put some insulation in somewhere, then we can give $85,000 to be able to go pick some people's stuff up. Have a good day. Thank you.
So, just a couple of thoughts. We have entered into an agreement. We did an open request for proposals, asked everyone in this industry to bring proposals forward. Several were interested, but at the end of the day, Waste Pro was the only one that really submitted a comprehensive and complete proposal, and we negotiated with them, and I think the issues and concerns that folks are raising are very practical and very real, and I think they resonate with us. And if there are things that we can do, then I think we're all, including Waste Pro, I think everyone's eager to have the best system we possibly can. There are trade-offs. I mean, some of these different decisions that are made around, just having bags on the ground or having a system where everyone's putting their trash in bags that can be automated, lifted up in an automated process. There are trade-offs here. I think, we had a citizen commission that Don Yelton served on and brought these recommendations to us and urged us to vote for this agreement, right? We were aware of some of these trade-offs when these issues came forward. If there are things that we can do to improve this, I think everyone is interested in doing that. Part of what we have to wrestle with is that this is an enterprise fund. This is a system where, the city of Asheville, if you live in the city, you pay your taxes and the city will come get your trash for you and your recycling. It's part of what you pay your taxes for. But in the unincorporated areas of the county, this isn't county government doing it. We contract with a private sector provider to do it, and not everyone's required to participate. Not all taxpayers participate in the system. Customers choose to join to have this service. And part of what we were interested in was negotiating the lowest possible price for the customers as a whole. No doubt there are some things that could be done to address some of these specific service issues. Some of them might cost more money. If we choose to do some of those, it would probably mean that the cost for the overall service would need to be different than what it was when we landed upon the levels of service that are in the current contract. And that's not to say that they shouldn't be considered, but part of our concern was trying to keep the cost down. And if we make certain changes, it will raise the cost for all the subscribers to the system. And there's just, that's just the math of it. And so I just wanted to share a few thoughts that it's a new agreement. I'm confident that we can find some solutions to some of these issues, and I appreciate everyone bringing them to us so that we can hear them and figure out which ones we can do some things about. Others, maybe harder to tackle in the short term. But thanks for bringing this forward. We're listening, and I know Waste Pro is listening, and we will continue to do so. And I guess I would just say to the staff, I don't know that there's any, very specific guidance that I've got, but just other than to just please kind of take these, continue to take these concerns in and think about which ones we might be able to, to act on, and either within the context of the current agreement, or if any, possible discussions might be warranted. So that's my perspective as a board commissioner. Any other final thoughts before we move on to the next item?
I appreciate your framing that, Ronnie. I think one thing that would be helpful is to try to get a sense of the volume of
concerns and complaints that we're hearing. It's hard to, you get dozens of emails and it feels like everyone's having a terrible problem, but you want to just get a sense of that. So if there's any data available about the rate of people who are electing to unsubscribe, or if you're logging calls and able to sort of individuate them, that kind of information would be really helpful, I think, to get a better handle on the number of folks in our community who are really struggling to figure out where they fit into this system and really facing tough decisions about whether to stay subscribed, pay extra, or unsubscribe and kind of use the other options. So that's the one specific request I'd have that might help us kind of zero in, as Commissioner Belcher said, zero in a little bit on what exactly we're dealing with and how we can come up with some potentially additional fixes and resources.
So that's where I was coming from. You know, I would document every email, I would document every call, I would categorize them, I would see, you know, how many are repetitive and how many of them are in a situation where it's a dire need. And then we just look at it and, you know, and categorize them and go from there. And if we want to invest in those, then we make that decision. If we can't, then we make that decision also. But we would have that information. You know, that would be information we'd be able to act on it. And like I said, it takes a lot of emotion out of it to get the facts.
I do have one specific question, and it goes back to something that was touched on earlier. But one of the most common complaints I have heard is from the folks who have invested in the more expensive containers, the bear-proof containers, and who have heartburn over not being able to use their containers. And I understand that, you know, whatever system of receptacles that are out there, they have to be compatible with your automated system. So, you know, some of the folks who have contacted me have said, well, I think that the model I have will work with that. So, and I'm sure it's desirable to have everything look and the same from a pickup standpoint, but they are expensive. So, is that something that you guys have been looking at, and is there any potential way that for folks who have already invested in one of these more expensive containers to look and see if they can work in the system, and if perhaps some kind of way of designating them, you know, as Waste Pro customers might be feasible?
Yes, sir. We are working with the county on that, on some different options, some different pricing options. One thing that we're careful about is, you know, as we worked on our proposal for the county, the whole program is important in how it's handled. It's important for us that we have identifiable Waste Pro containers. You know, there's a large percentage out there that unfortunately, as the system is now, are not paying customers. I know you find it hard to believe, but a lot. You know, we have a lot of roads where we have, you know, 10 homes on the road and 2 homes are paying, okay? But we have 12 homes of trash at the bottom. You know, so this is an opportunity for us to work on, you know, getting that standard, and we took those factors into consideration with our price and our proposal. But we are working with the staff. We think that we're close to coming up with several viable solutions. You know, some people do have compatible containers. I talked to a lady today that she had a compatible container, but please understand, you know, that was part of our reasoning with that we wanted containers that we could identify, and that would help us to make sure that we were picking up paying customers.
I totally understand that. I appreciate you looking at it, and if there's some way, at least maybe for some period of time, to have some interim ways that for folks who have purchased these in the recent past to be able to get some value out of them. We appreciate your consideration of it.
Thank you.
All right, commissioners, and again, to all the folks from the public who came out tonight, thank you for being with us. It's very valuable to us. All right, next item on the agenda is the affordable housing recognition, and Nate Pennington will present this item.
Thank you, Chair, Commissioners, and members of the public. I'll go over a recognition that the planning department's participated in. There's just a couple of slides I'll touch on real quick, and I'm just going to flip to here. The planning department worked on a couple of different initiatives recently, and one was a community-oriented development. This was in our zoning ordinance. We've spoken about this before. Actually, the East Haven project that's under construction in Swananoa took advantage of this program, and we were recently featured just last year in a NACO publication as a case study. Sometime after that, we were reached out to from the University of Utah through what was called an Ivory Prize. This is the first year of this prize. This is a map just of the distribution of the applications received. This is in conjunction with the University of Utah as well as Harvard. Basically what it did is it recognizes that not only is it gateway communities that struggle with affordable housing, but it's a problem throughout the nation, and it traces back to even during the Great Recession when we really lost track of supply and demand. So we're really essentially still trying to catch up in that regard. The reason that they reached out to the county after they read the publication is they said, hey, you guys came up with something that was innovative. We obviously have to work with whatever statutes and guidelines were given from the state. So what we did was we sat down collectively as a staff. We tried to innovate and come up with some ideas that were within our means, and we were invited to apply for the prize, and we placed in the top 10 across the country. We were the only government entity to be chosen, and therefore wanted to just bring to your attention that on November the 15th, myself, along with Cynthia Fox-Clark from Planning, will be presenting as part of a roundtable. It will be live streamed. This is the website. You can click on that, and we'll be representing Buncombe County at Harvard. A couple of staff were here earlier. They had to go to attend to some children issues, but I'm here. And I don't want to take up any more of your time. If you have any questions, just let us know. We'll be happy to.
Congratulations, that's great. Great job. All right, and next item on the agenda is a financial quarterly report, and Don Moore, our finance director, will present this item.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Or is it good night now? Max? Let's get that. Okay, so this is the fourth quarter financial report, unaudited. As you know, the auditors are on site now, and they are in the midst of finishing that up, so we should be done with that by October 31st. And then we will come back with an actual audited end-of-year financial report, the CAFR, for you to review. But I wanted to give you an update on where we ended. Now that we have all the revenues received and all the accruals have been booked. We're going to go over the general fund, budget to actual, and I'll also touch on the solid waste. So as you can see, we ended the year, well, I should say, we ended the year, but we're not officially ended, just so you know. Total amended budget was $325 million, total actual was $310. We ended about 96% expended. This is at the functional level, which is the level at which we budget, and we came in under budget in every category, so that is a good thing. We did not violate any budget laws, which means we have no findings when it's time to look at this. The other important thing to note is 96% is pretty good. If you look at the top 10 counties out there, last 2 years they've been at about 94 to 95% on average, so we did pretty good as far as figuring out where we're going to be with budget. The next slide breaks it down by categories. So this is a lot easier to talk about because this is looking at our salaries and benefits, operating expenditures, program support, and that sort of thing. And I wanted to give you kind of information on why various categories came in under budget. So if we were to look at the benefits, salary benefits, the main reason for that coming under the budget is due to an accounting change. So in 2017, the end of 2017, HR made the change so that when you were paying for your health insurance out of your paycheck, you were no longer prepaying it, you were paying for the current month. Now, what that meant is when we get to the end of the year, we don't have to do the year-end accrual, which is where we go and take that first pay period and pull it back into the current year. However, we budgeted for that. So since we budgeted but didn't have to do it, it ended up saving us about $3 million, a little over, because we didn't have to do that accrual. Other savings included office expense. So we have 38 cost centers, 31 of them came in under budget on an average of about $20,000. So people are being frugal with their money, they're spending it the way we need them to spend it. Another area is maintenance and repairs. So we always budget every year anticipating that we're going to be doing whatever maintenance, repairs on equipment, that sort of thing. Sometimes we don't do it, so therefore we have budget savings. And we actually saved about $1 million in budget for that category. The other big category, contract and professional services, we saved about $2.2 million. And this is the combination of either we're going to do something, we're going to contract out with somebody to do it, and we didn't have time because you know how it is. We have great plans at budget time, we're going to get all this stuff done, and then when everything happens or changes come from you all or management or whatever, then we have to put things on hold so we don't necessarily end up doing all that we anticipated doing. I guess I should have went to that slide, it'd been helpful. Now, as far as the budget, we do have some carryover, so there were some items that we had started, but we carried over, and you guys approved that actually at the last meeting. And then on the revenue side, we did really well. So we budgeted $325 million, but that included appropriated fund balance. So if we back out the appropriated fund balance, our true revenue budget would have been $312 million, and year-to-date actual collections are $321 million, so we almost 103% of budget. So not surprising, because when you budget revenues, you're definitely going to do it on a more conservative basis. And then property tax is budgeted based on Keith's best assessment at the time we're doing the budget, but he doesn't finalize the assessed values until after we've already adopted the budget. So there's always going to be a little bit more there. We collected about $1 million extra in revenue for property tax. Sales tax came in stronger than we budgeted at about 3.4%. And then investment earnings really came in strong because of the interest rates going up. Now, the Fed has reduced interest rates, so I wouldn't count on 2020 being that great. We got about $1.7 million extra just from investment earnings. I keep forgetting I had this slide in there. It's been a long time since I did this. So this shows the different categories of growth. Is there any questions on the general fund? All right. Moving on to solid waste. We had a budget there of $9.8 million. Total actual expenditure 7.7, so about 78%. Now, as we all heard, solid waste is a business, essentially. So we only spend what we really need to do. Dane did a good job managing his costs. A lot of this is attributable to maintenance and repairs that didn't have to occur. Some contracts for professional services, so the switch from Wiseman to SCS actually had quite a bit of savings. The closure costs, post-closure costs, that sort of thing, saved us quite a bit of money. And then they had the same issue with the benefits, so we didn't have to do that accrual. And then if you look at the revenues, did pretty well, 102.4% of budget. And the biggest contributors to that are the investment earnings, which gave us about $275,000 extra. And then other taxes and licenses, which is the scrap tires, white goods tax, and the solid waste tax. Those came in higher than anticipated. And then our miscellaneous revenue, which includes the renewable energy credits from our gas generation, came in a little bit higher as well. We got about almost $35,000 extra there. Have any questions on the fourth quarter? Are you still awake?
We are awake.
This is good stuff right here.
We are.
All right. Thank you very much.
Any questions?
The revenue increase is the good news, you know, the sales tax, that's just, you know, we're just reaping that benefit right now, and, you know, and that can be a help to taxpayers next year.
Absolutely.
It absolutely can. I mean, we were worried about fund balance, you know, and it was what we should have been doing, but the money come in.
Yeah, and as you talk about fund balance, you know, we budget and appropriate fund balance. Well, I know every year it looks like, okay, well, we budget all this fund balance, we say we're gonna use it, but then we never use it. Pretty common practice because we're gonna be conservative on the revenue side, we're gonna be conservative on the expenditure side. So the only way you can really balance that is by fund balance. When you get actually into the year and you get towards the end, you realize you're not gonna use as much. And then when we get to the final numbers, you can see we're gonna actually be contributing money back into fund balance. So it's fantastic news for the county.
Yeah, and I think, you know, and I'll make this point probably this year, maybe not, is that not last year, but the year before, we took a tax cut. We gave a real tax cut, and people were concerned about that. But because of the economy and the revenue, and actually what the people out here did and was able to create, it was fine, and it was doable. So it's good news on the numbers. Thanks.
Don, can you help us understand on the county capital projects? There's two in particular, and I know, as you said, things happen, but can you give us an updated timeline on when those can be expected to start, completion? I'm specifically looking at the Owen Park exercise stations, that zero's been expended, as well as the elections training room has 0%, and then at 0.4% is the detention center repair and cleaning.
I cannot answer when those projects are going to be moving forward. That would be general services that handles those. I don't know the timing and if they've got them bid or anything. Avril, do you have any?
I don't have specific details on all of them. What was the second one you said?
The Owen Park exercise stations, the elections training room, and then the detention center exterior repair and cleaning, only 12,000 of the 2.7 has been spent.
I'm just follow up on those two, but specifically on the training room, there are 2 line items in the budget, and it's being coded to the second. So that is part of the Hughes Building capital project. So that work is done, almost completed. They should be moving in shortly.
Okay.
But there were 2 separate line items, so that's why one was being charged to the second line item. So that specific project, I did notice that.
Yeah,
I
that's
noticed
really
when I walked
helpful.
through the work, and the work was done. So
But no,
I
it's
did
right.
notice that.
Okay.
But the other 2 we will follow up on and get you an answer on that one.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll shoot out an email to all of you in the morning.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Next item is a resolution authorizing 2020 Census Partnership, and Tim Love will present this item.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Jumping ahead on
We could do that, though.
We'll let you do it.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. This evening, we'd like to talk about the 2020 census. For this presentation, you've heard from me before, but I have a new face to introduce to you, and that is Dr. Debbie Reese, who's sitting here patiently waiting her turn.
She tried to go to dinner with me in the hallway. She tried to get me to buy her dinner. You did. I was going to Chick-fil-A.
She will
said,
school
"Give
you
me a
on the
sandwich."
Constitution, so be careful.
Too much information.
With that said, Dr. Reese comes from us from the Federal Census Bureau. She is located locally here in nearby Cherokee County. So I'll share a few notes with you, and then we'll turn it over to her to share with you kind of the value of this partnership and why the census is so important to the Federal Census Bureau. But the few things I wanted to say, I just wanted to remind you that we briefed you on this before. This evening we are asking you to approve or authorize a resolution as it relates to partnership with the census. We're not asking for any funding or anything of that nature. It's just affirming that this board supports the objectives of the federal government census. So once Debbie concludes her presentation, I will come back to you and ask you for that approval. But at this point, I'll turn it over to Ms. Reese.
Thanks, Jim. Now, I did prepare some folders for you that, do you have them?
We do.
Okay, great. So I'm Debbie Denise Reese, and I'm your partnership specialist for the 2020 census. As a partnership specialist, I joined the nation's largest peacetime mobilization of its workforce. At its conclusion, it will be 500,000 strong, 500,000 strong, all dedicated toward one mission, and that is to count everyone once, only once, and in the right place, and in support of just one goal, and that is a complete an accurate count. Now, as a partnership specialist, my job is to educate, encourage, and engage. So that's what I'll try to do briefly tonight. And as I began this position, I found that a decennial census like the 2020 census is a pillar of United States democracy. And I wondered, why is that? And I found we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. In Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3 of that Constitution, the founders mandated a decennial census, a population head count to occur every 10 years. Now, why? Why is that so important and fundamental to our democracy that it was written into Article 1 of the Constitution? Well, it's all in that preamble: to establish justice, to ensure domestic tranquility, and to provide for the general welfare. Now, at the time of the founding, in order to ensure domestic tranquility, we had to have just representation. And how did they do that? The idea was to have a population head count and then use that head count to determine the number of seats per state in the U.S. House of Representatives. And along with that, the number of electors in the Electoral College. Now, at the time of the founding, in order to secure that blessing of liberty, we had a huge debt. And in order to pay that debt, to do that justly, the population head count was used to equitably distribute that among the states. Now, the first census was conducted in 1790 during the first term of President George Washington. Thomas Jefferson is the director of the census. And U.S. Marshals and their assistants went door-to-door knocking, and it took them 18 months to put the results, that population head count, on the president's desk. Today, in 2020, for the first time ever, the population of the United States will be able to submit their census data on the internet. They can use a computer, a laptop, a mobile device. They can choose to submit by telephone, or they can choose to use the traditional paper form. Now, as in 1790, our population head count, it's essential. It is used to determine the number of seats in the U.S. House of Representatives and the number of electors in the Electoral College. Now, the other component, just representation and just distribution of resources, which is what you've been talking about a lot tonight. Well, in 2020, we will have over $675 billion in resources to distribute among our population. And over 132 federal programs are determined by the population head count. Now, the way it works is this, that Congress determines the size of the pie for each of those programs, how much money is going to the program, but the size of the slice that goes to the state and filters down to the county and the local program, that's determined by the population head count. And when, in the state of North Carolina, or in this county, when there is an undercount, the size of the pie stays the same, but the size of the slice that's going to go to Buncombe County will be smaller. And that money doesn't just go back to the federal government, it's distributed among the other slices of the pies. The other thing that's really important is that we traditionally have an undercount of certain populations, not only children 0 to 5 in those programs you're referring to, but seniors, veterans, people experiencing poverty, homelessness. Now, there are programs that are counted, specifically distributed based upon the head count of those subsections of the population. And when these traditionally undercounted populations come in undercounted, the benefits to which they are entitled are not received. For veterans, for seniors, for children, for low-income families. So, in Buncombe County in 2000, our population self-response was about 74%. And in 2010, it was about 75%. That was the average for the country, about 75%. Now, that's certainly not good enough. For 2020, the census has set a goal of 82%. But you know, I've lived in the Appalachian region for 23 years, in Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina now, and I'm in Western North Carolina, and I have been told over and over and over that people in Western North Carolina always do everything 100%. Now, wouldn't it be great if in Buncombe County we could get closer to 100% so that we could receive the benefits to which we're entitled? Now, the census has taken this integrated top-down, bottom-up approach to building a better count. Over the past few decades, the self-response has really gone down. I mean, it's about 50% in a lot of places in 2000. So what they've done is they've said, let's find leaders like yourselves who are trusted voices, and let's tell them about the census, why it's important, that it's confidential, that census data are never, ever shared for the individual, that no federal agency, not the FBI, not ICE, no one has access to census data. They cannot even be subpoenaed. In fact, when we report the data, if the population for a certain segment is too small to allow those data for that whatever characteristic to be indicated, that cell is left blank, so that the identities of individuals can never be determined. This is a fundamental law and a priority. A population head count so that we can have just representation and the confidentiality and the safety of our citizens. So we identify these leaders, top down, bottom up, local leaders. But you know what? When you get down into the hollers, there isn't as much trust for government as there is from you people here. So what we need is endorsement at the top, leadership like you, so that that can filter down, so that when Tim and I go into these communities, when the subcommittees go into the communities, they can say, this is something that we as a county support, that we trust and believe in, and that these are benefits to which you're entitled, and you can't get them unless we report your data. And that is why tonight, Tim and I and other members of the committee that have been working so hard since you first started on this enterprise, we're asking you to resolve that you will support this resolution, that you will resolve that you will partner with the 2020 census, and that you support the complete count committee so that when we go out, we can say, we together in Buncombe County are working toward counting everybody once, only once, and in the right place for a complete and accurate count. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Reese. Thank you, Dr. Reese. Before asking for your authorization, I'll of course open it up for questions, but want to leave you with 2 dates and 1 stat. And so the 2 dates, in mid-March, folks will start getting postal mailings in their mailboxes that indicate it's time to get ready for the census. On those mailings will be online information as well as a phone number. And so, as Dr. Reese said, this is the first time we'll be able to do this online, so it's super important to make sure that your constituents know that it's okay. If you receive a federal mailing from the Census Bureau, you can go to that website and complete that information. The other date that I would leave you with is April 1st, that's Census Day, that's when this all gets started. And then the stat I would leave you with, and these are estimated numbers, but a 1% increase in census response rate in Buncombe County is approximately 2,500 people. If we use a George Washington Studies basis to estimate the dollar value of that, that's $1,600 per person, $4 million per year, and $40 million over a 10-year period to programs like Medicaid, Medicare, transportation. So there's some meaningful dollars here. With that said, if there's any questions, I'll take them now. If not, I would ask that you consider authorizing the resolution.
All right, thank you.
So I'll make that motion to approve the resolution.
I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you so much, Dr. Reese and Tim. Not on this item. We will take public comment in just a minute. All right, we have our board appointments. There are 3 vacancies on the Women's Commission.
I'd like to nominate Marielle Olson. Can we do all 3 at once? Darlene Azami and Carmen Ybarra for appointment to the Women's Commission.
A second.
All right. Hearing no others, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, now we come to public comment. Folks are welcome to comment on any issues that we haven't already taken public comment on this evening. So you've got 3 minutes. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak to the board? Mr. Yellen.
Mine's going in about 25 different directions at one time. But the first thing I think of is the comment, I'm with the government, I'm here to help you. And I looked at all the budget items today, and by the way, I appreciate the way the budget was presented in the minutes. Good job. Look at those charts. You see where we're spending money, don't you? You see the debt service, that's a good job. But one thing that really bugs me, you talked about what can this county board do in terms of the Waste Pro contract. First and foremost, you, the county, need to know what the complaints are when they are made and as they're made. Picking up the phone and calling and talking to somebody in Gastonia or Charlotte doesn't ring well in today's world. And those of you that try to get service know what I'm talking about. It should be in this county, and that's something that you don't want to force on Waste Pro. They've already got that bid as low as they can get it, folks, because they do want the business. Period. End of discussion. So that information needs to come from Buncombe County. That's where you can put some money right now to find out. And then you can solve each of the problems individually. And I don't care what the law says. I don't care what anything says. If a little old lady only has one little bag of trash, she can buy a Dad Jim sticker and put on that bag and put it out. But it's almost like you are walking, talking against a brick wall. Everybody's saying, this is the way we're going to solve it, and this is the only way we're going to solve it, okay? I just heard 2 of them outside there, he said there'd been over 20 people injured in Buncombe County this year on trash trucks. I made the suggestion, why don't we put a swing out stop sign on a trash truck? So people can not go past it when they're picking up trash. He said, well, that's another item, that's another. Hey folks, what are you all in charge of up there? You are the commissioners. You have the power to solve these problems, so you need to know what they are. That's why the calls need to be made to you. And by the way, an attorney, when he says that it's not the commissioner's job to know where the money goes, now we know why our court system is in the problem that it's in. So that is just a thought to end on.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Rice. And after Mr. Rice, is there anyone else? All right, Mr. Rice, you will close this out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Money. You're familiar with money? One thing that's on my mind is county manager, her discretion on how money is being spent or used and the amount of money that she's in control of going out. This has been something that I have noticed over all the 30-some years I've been here. There's a lot of money that's being taken out. I'd like to see the sum of money that the discretion at the county manager level, even in the past 10 years, and just see the amount of money at the total at the end of the year that the county manager has approved and expedited, that this board don't even know anything about, or either didn't vote on. I think Ellen Frost's attorney made a statement in the paper, said voting on every dollar spent is not how counties run. Well, that's a lawyer that don't know too much. But at the same time, I think policy and procedure, and you've already covered a lot of this stuff in the things that's happened with the indictments and all. But I still think that it's needing some work done on it. I'd like to see something discussed about the discretionary money here. Because 40,000, 20,000, 10,000, 5,000, after a while it adds up to a lot of money. So little things is what you got to pay attention to. The big ones, they're pretty much in your face. So thank you for listening.
All right, thank you. All right, we have a couple announcements. On October 15th at 3 p.m., the county commissioners will hold their pre-meeting at 200 College Street, room 326. And then that evening at 5 p.m. on October 15th, the county commissioners will hold their next regular meeting at 200 College Street in room 326. Thank you all for being with us. This meeting is adjourned.
You've got a
And
closed session.
Another one? Okay.
What's the topic? The topic would be, again, to consult with an attorney retained by the board under North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A3 to discuss the matter of Irene Warren Kent, administratrix of the estate of Michelle Quantel Smiley versus Van Duncan in his official capacity as the sheriff of Buncombe County, Western Surety Company, et al. And the site for that is CBS 18322.
All right, is there a motion to go?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We do not expect to take any action on this item. We expect when we come back from closed session to simply adjourn.
That's why you make it a big place.